WJOX 94.5, McElroy and Cubelic in the morning, getting you set for the Christmas holiday, recapping all the college football action from over the weekend. We're glad you're with us. 3 hours to talk college football in the first round of the college football playoff. A lot happening through the transfer portal. Get to that as well. Tweet in at Mac and Cube. Text in 205-834-9450. Did we learn from the first round of the playoff that the committee got it wrong? Is that your main takeaway? Question we'll ask through the course of today. We'll have Paul Finebaum at 7:15. Andy Burcham will make up a visit from tomorrow today at 8 a.m., and that'll be it for the guest today. Greg McElroy, you were on the call in South Bend for the first ever 12-team college football playoff game. The scene looked magnificent. Just take us through kind of your day, your evening, what it was like, how it went.
Well, big day. When was the last time you called a game on like a Friday? Like a traditional Friday. I know you did Thanksgiving a couple years ago, but have you called one on a Friday recently?
Not recently. That would be the infamous Tom Herman game, but that'd probably be the last time.
Yes. Yes. That was a good one. Yeah. So clearly Friday is awkward for you too. But the whole day felt off. It was weird. It was like a full work day. And then, all right, let's go to the stadium and do the game. It was just strange. I didn't get to watch much of the games before that. Usually when I'm calling a game at night, I'm watching games wall to wall. I don't think I saw one snap of the Tulane and Florida game until I got to the stadium. So that was a little dicey, but it was awesome, man. It was really, really cool. I think it worked out well. We'll see what the numbers are. I think the game like you had said, you had something that you had to do. I don't recall exactly what it was, but it was something it was some Christmas party.
Yeah, we had a Sunday school Christmas party. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm curious to see how well received it was. You know what I mean? Because obviously I was into it. It was a good time for me. It's my job, but I'm curious if it's something that's sustainable. A lot of this playoff is trial and error and figuring out best practice. But man alive, I think the Friday night's got a good vibe to it. I really do. I think it's got a really good vibe to it, and it was awesome to be there. I hated that Indiana didn't play well until like the final 4 minutes of the game because I knew a lot of the conversation would center around, see, they didn't belong. And I just don't really want to have those hypothetical conversations. I mean, when you start talking about teams 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, all those teams have flaws, and all those teams have the potential to lay an egg. We've seen them all do it this year. So it's a little bit hard for me to sit there and be super critical of what the committee did or didn't do when we have seen teams 9 through 15 be really inconsistent at times. So I thought it was an entertaining atmosphere, but the game certainly left a little to be desired for sure.
There's no doubt. And we actually talked about that on Friday, that the way that game could go and a couple of games could go. I think that game falls into the category. SMU and Penn State falls in the category of going to be an easy, maybe low-hanging fruit, lazy takeaway to just say those teams aren't good. I thought Indiana had an atrocious plan offensively. And what they did throughout the course of the game was also atrocious. SMU shot themselves in the foot early, and by far their worst tackling performance of the season. Literally not even close. So it's going to be easy for people to sit there and just say those teams just aren't good. Those teams are terrible. You can play bad. That's a real thing. It can happen. And I thought for the most part both of those teams did. Let's focus in on your game first. I didn't think Indiana. I think I counted 7 one-on-ones down the field. They converted none. They converted 3, so it'd be like 3 out of 10, 2 out of 10. But they had their shots and they didn't hit them. And then I thought the lack of ability to generate anything on screen plays, on slants, on high percentage throws. I give the Notre Dame secondary credit. I thought they were good. They were unbelievable in that game. The safety help in the run game was unbelievable. I mean, that defense, if you watch it, it felt like, they're just overloading the line of scrimmage. Late they were. After the ball was snapped that they were. And I didn't think there was enough emphasis by Indiana's part to get the ball on the perimeter. I thought some of the play calling, I think it was like a 3rd and 12. They ran that reverse down inside their own 20. And then obviously you and Sean talked about it a lot. The decision to punt there at one point when you weren't in the game. And I understand Cignetti after the game saying that, offense wasn't really generating much. And this, just, I don't know, man. Like this, it felt like a very arrogant game plan to me for Indiana. And then even maybe more so throughout the course of the game, the lack of trying to go to different things because what you were doing just wasn't working.
Yeah, well, when you're an RPO-based style of attack and you have favorable numbers to run the ball and still can't run the ball, you have to get out of it. Like, I don't care what the circumstances are. Like, okay, there's 6 in the box. This means run it. Oh, but if you can't run it against that front four because Riley Mills, number 99, is absolutely eating your lunch, then you have to do something different. And I don't feel like they were willing or able, or I didn't think they ran enough stretch zone. I mean, there were about 15 things that I think they kind of probably wish they could have done better or wish they could have done differently. And who can really blame them? The other thing I thought was ridiculous. The whole game, my whole estimation in the game was you need to win it outside. Like, you're not going to run the ball real well between the tackles. Your guard to guard guards are not great. You need guards to run the ball well. So you're going to have to basically live with stretch zone, and you're going to have to basically live with one-on-ones being won by your wide receivers. Now, your quarterback was a little off. He missed more throws in that game than I saw him miss in any other game this year. And not crazy challenging throws. Simple throws that he makes in his sleep, like glances, slants, back shoulder fades, things like that. Once they realized they were throwing the back shoulder fade over and over and over again, the DBs, and you'll see this as you prepare for the Georgia game, watch how well the defenders, the corners for Notre Dame, where they play the ball as it arrives. They're playing to the back shoulder without really indicating that they're playing to the back shoulder. It was tremendous technique. And I think it flustered Indiana because throwing it over their head and dropping it in the bucket is a harder throw than the back shoulder throw. So with how they were covering the back shoulder, it had to be absolute pinpoint accuracy, and it wasn't. So it was, I think, a bad plan from Indiana. As far as Indiana's defense is concerned, it's hard to take much away. They had one guy play out of a gap. It gave him a 98-yard run. But other than that, I didn't think the defense played horrible. They just got pounded over and over again and eventually ran out of gas because I believe time of possession at one point was 35-19. And you're not going to be able to hold up when you don't have a really deep group like Indiana does.
You mentioned being a little bit off on some of those throws. He was a lot off on a couple of those back shoulders down the field. And I thought one thing Indiana would be able to do is take some of those easier throws, get the ball out in the flat, maybe to the backs, or move receivers different directions, and then maybe a couple of slants and be able to generate some explosive plays off that, and they just couldn't do it. Notre Dame tackled extremely well. I thought it was clinic tape of second, third level fitting the run. And a lot of that starts with that defensive line because, like you said, Riley Mills and company ate their lunch. I mean, this offensive line, they've just literally got their rear ends kicked. There's not another way to put it. Give Notre Dame a lot of credit for doing that. But also, I love the way that the Notre Dame defense showed man coverage, played close in coverage to the line of scrimmage, and utilized those players in run support. Now, you got to be able to cover to do that, or you better get some pressure when you do that, and they did. But almost disguising having extra players in the box. Because you're right, the run looks were there. But then was those other defenders a lot of times that would show up and make the plays. And then just like, I mean, you get a quick throw and uncovered out in the flat, and there's a corner circumventing a stalk block, and he comes up and makes the play. Or you get the little quick toss outside. Oh, you got some space, and the nickel comes up underneath the tight end and makes the play for a 1-yard gain. You just that's what Notre Dame did all night. And then when that started happening, Greg, they didn't have to do anything on offense. I mean, you had the one explosive run by Jeremiah Love for 98 yards. And I thought Riley Leonard was great moving around the pocket, not throwing the ball into traffic. Like, he avoided catastrophe plays, but had to move some, made some tough throws. The one deep touchdown pass, the deep post, like avoiding a little bit of pressure, knowing he was going to take a hit. That was a great throw.
Really nice.
I thought he played a great game, but they didn't have to do a whole lot offensively. They probably knew they had that one in the bag.
Yeah, I mean, they only threw one pass more than 10 yards downfield. Think about that. Now, they called it. You know, they called plays that were downfield. They called 5 or 6 shots, But Riley just took the check down. I mean, he threw the check down probably 7 times in the game, just right down to the running back underneath. No problem. Hey, let's not get too aggressive. I think it was a tale of 2 quarterbacks' mental toughness in this game. Riley Leonard throws an early pick, doesn't allow it to bother him whatsoever. The other side, Curtis Rourke throws an early pick after they have momentum. I mean, they are inside the 15-yard line, and he forces it into quad coverage, including an umpire, the official who is basically covering the over route. It gets picked, and he never really bounced. It took him 2.5 quarters to bounce back from that, whereas Riley came right back the next drive, and there was no problems whatsoever. So I think that was a big story in the game as well, bouncing back from some early disappointment, and one team did it, the other team didn't. Pretty simple. So I don't think that Indiana had their best stuff. I'm amazed, like you said, at how close the safeties played at the box sometimes. And how much, I don't want to say disrespect, because they didn't disrespect them. They just believed in their own guys. It's kind of amazing to me how much they said, yeah, we might have just given up 550 to USC and their wide receivers, but that ain't happening again. We can cover these guys. Because if you look at Indiana's wideouts, that's the best part of their team. I mean, they are fantastic at wide receiver. I mean, big time at wide receiver. And it didn't matter. Those guys covered them. They were sticky as can be. And there really wasn't a lot of room and not a lot of windows to kind of throw it into with some of the pressure that he had to deal with up front in the swell.
Absolutely. All right, so we will come back to that game, but before we move on from that game, just take us inside the stadium, the feel. It felt awesome. I thought your crew did a great job showing just around the stadium, big shots, crowd shots from the stadium to kind of just give a little bit of the vibe to the viewer, but how was it being there, just all of it compared to some of the other bigger environments you've been in college football?
Man, it was awesome. Obviously a bucket list experience to go and take it in. I didn't know what to expect. You know what I mean? I mean, you and I are very, very lucky. Like, our job is incredible. And we get to go to all these cool venues, but you never really know, like, is this place going to be as good as I hope it is? Because sometimes you can probably in your mind put the bar a little too high. You know what I mean? Do you ever get that way?
No,
like
totally
you go
fair.
in like, I thought it was going to be a little better than it was. You know what I mean? So there's some places that kind of blow you away. Like the first time I went to Starkville, I was like, this is awesome. You know, and I didn't know that Starkville was going to be a great environment and a great atmosphere. I had no idea. But this was one where I had high expectation and it exceeded that high expectation, which is hard to do. So it really, really a special place. I'm not sure I can properly sum up how much I will recommend anyone that gets the opportunity to go and take that environment in. Like, you need to go. If your team is playing up there, you need to go. I don't care what it costs. It's worth it. And it's potentially a once in a lifetime type of deal. And that's what, I don't know if I'll ever call another game there, but man alive, it was worth it to go and to see it. And had I not called a game there, I would have taken my kids there and taken them to a game the first opportunity I got. It's really a special place and it's cool. And it is strange, though, I will admit. It is strange because it's not really a wine and cheese crowd at all. The people in the stands are not what you'd expect. Like, it's pretty hardcore. Way more hardcore than I expected. Now, I was kind of thinking wine and cheese. Like most, high-level education, private schools, kind of a wine and cheese squad. That was not the case at Notre Dame. People getting after it, shirts off, and after about 12 hours of drinking. So I don't know if it looked that way from your vantage point, but it was pretty chaotic.
Well, we talked about it here on the show, some of the videos that were floating around early in the day, and just some of the scenes from outside the stadium. It was, I don't think anybody looked at it as, this isn't going to be a crowd that's going to be into it or be excited about it, and it turned out being fantastic. So a lot more to get to. Ohio State smashes Tennessee 42-17. We'll discuss that one. Penn State handled SMU 38-10. Their third-string quarterback was in the game. And Texas took care of Clemson 38-24. Not as comfortable as a lot of people are suggesting in that game, in my opinion at least, even though Texas did some things extremely well. We'll discuss all of those throughout the course of the show. We'll visit with Paul Finebaum on the other side. We'll get to your calls a little bit later, things that you want to say, want to discuss around the college football playoff. Don't get caught in the cold. Schedule your system checkup now from a Trane Comfort Specialist. Trane has been recognized 10 consecutive years as America's most trusted HVAC brand and our exclusive home comfort partners here at Jocks. Visit Trane.com to find a comfort specialist near you. Did the college football playoff committee get it wrong? We'll ask Paul Finebaum next on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. All right, 7:19 a.m., Monday, December 23rd. Hope you and your family are getting set for a nice Christmas holiday. Got a lot of that knocked out over the weekend, whatever it was that you needed to get done. We'll be with you today and then back live again on Friday. You'll hear some best of and other different show elements for the rest of the week, as obviously most of us going to be off for the Christmas holiday. Paul Finebaum joins us each and every Monday, thanks to our friends at Craneworks.
Lift it, load it, grade it, grind it, move it, haul it, rig it, dig it, Craneworks, Rentalworks, yeah! The big dog's got it.
Paul Finebaum on Mac and Cube in the Morning is brought to you by Craneworks. Lift it, buy it, rent it, the big dog's got it. Now, Paul Finebaum.
Always great to have you in on a Monday, Paul. Is the big takeaway for the first round of this year's college football playoff that the committee missed with these teams that they placed in?
I think that's part of it, Cole. I think the other one is the fact that we already knew that it was a terribly constructed system in relation to seeding and allowing conference champions to bye. But none of it really matters. I mean, we just got fairly disappointing games, and I have the feeling that the audiences were way down due to that, and the fact that it was a terrible day to have football this Saturday before Christmas. But mostly, it was a pretty depressing weekend if you're a college football fan on what should have been one of the great weekends we've ever had.
Well, we'll be interested to see the numbers. I know what the projections are. I'm just curious to see where it actually lands. Because I don't think we are necessarily conditioned to watch a lot of football on this first weekend. And the fact that the games got sideways is not great whatsoever. But we've seen a lot of games in the playoffs over the years have one-sided scores, Paul. So I don't know if the 12 team I don't know if the 12 team is necessarily going to be less competitive moving forward, but it does beg the question, was expansion really necessary?
Yeah, by the way, you're right. I mean, we have both suffered through some woeful CFP games. Really,
thank God for the Finebaum film room some years, because we really needed to take some calls in the second half of some games that got sideways.
Yeah, I mean, we happened to be together probably one of the best games we've ever done, but I can't remember too many good ones since that Alabama-Ohio State game. But ultimately, I think the audiences will be significantly better for the Friday night and Saturday night game. I think that's easy to figure out. I think the noon and 4 o'clock game on Saturday, so we're going to be overwhelmed by the NFL no matter who was playing. And I bet their numbers are even down. Greg, it's just the nature of it. I thought the game you were doing, the lead in, the first couple of minutes as it was coming on was probably one of the great moments we've experienced in college football. It was not only the anticipation, but it was where it was. I mean, it's hard to start something any better when you're at the absolute cathedral of college football. But for all the teeth gnashing that has gone on from Lane Kiffin on down since Saturday afternoon, some of that was expected. It won't really matter. And if you look back at what the committee did, we can quibble. But for every quibble, there's a response to say, hey, what could Alabama and South Carolina and Miami and Ole Miss have done differently? We've already had that debate. We've had it ad nauseum. I've even heard people saying, well, how did Tennessee get in there? Well, I mean, Tennessee actually had a really good season. They just picked the biggest moment to have the most embarrassing performance.
Paul Finebaum with us on the Buyers Right Hotline, joins us every Monday. Thanks to Craneworks. Paul, when you look at the home teams going 4-0, the decisive wins that they had, average margin of victory over 19 points, all had more than a 21-point lead at some point in the game. We literally had one lead change the entire weekend in the college football playoff games. Are we going to begin to emphasize these home field advantages even more so, however this format plays out moving forward?
Of course. Listen, those of us who cover college football just look for the most convenient narrative to wrap our arms around, and that's the one we'll be talking about all spring, all summer, and into next fall. But I mean, ultimately, every game was a little bit different. I mean, there are reasons why all four had the results they did, and I think too many people were. Or even looking at the score and ignoring the last few minutes, especially of the Indiana game, especially of the Tennessee game, where these cheap last-minute touchdowns even made it look even better than if that could be possible than it really deserved to be. I talked to Greg Sankey on Saturday morning when we were in Austin, and he looked at me and said, "Yeah, I mean, he's not surprised." Because he was there when they were trying to construct it. And everybody listening knows what I'm about to say. They had to make this deal to get it done. Back to what Greg said a minute ago, do we really need 12? Do we really need 14? No. But Greg, how many times have we sat there on that first Sunday or second Sunday in December going, 5 and 6 may be complaining about not getting in, but other than maybe last year and the first year, who really had a good complaint?
Not many, that's for sure. I think this, and those that are saying, oh, well, this is, these are why we shouldn't do this. This is why it should be this. Like, this was never a model that was designed for teams 9 through 12. Like, not only do they have to go on the road, but these are flawed football teams. Like, when you start getting that far down the list, these teams have flaws. Not saying that 5 through 8 don't, but they're a lot less flawed than the teams that are 9 through 12. Plus, the home field advantage was going to be a very difficult thing for those teams to overcome. Paul, looking at how this should be tweaked, my whole thing is I'm fine with this year being what it is. I just think it's very important for us to assess what this year has provided us. And there's two things I like about this field so far. I think we, one, need more home playoff games. As many as we can get, I don't care. Give me as many as we can have. Give them in the first round, second round, I'm good with that. And two, we need to put a significant premium on strength of schedule. We also, Paul, need to put a significant premium on who you've played out of conference. I think we should prioritize and reward teams that challenge themselves out of conference, because Indiana didn't, SMU didn't really. They played TCU, but they didn't. I mean, TCU wasn't great at that point. They got better as the season went along. So those are kind of the tweaks I would make here from year 1 to year 2, and that doesn't change the structure, but it just changed maybe the criteria with which we evaluate these teams.
Well, there's no question. And, I give Clemson credit. They played Georgia and they play South Carolina, one playoff team and one near miss. But ultimately,
right.
And this will be, Clemson goes 0-3 in the SEC. I try to think, okay, forget Clemson for a second, but how would anyone do going with that 8-game schedule? And certainly Georgia had the toughest, along with Florida, and Texas probably had the easiest, along with Missouri. And that's where I wish they would look, but I know everybody hates the SEC or outside of the footprint and doesn't gets very tired of this argument. But your schedule shouldn't, your 1-loss record has nothing to do with it. And I got so sick of hearing Ward Manuel sit up there and try to defend that aspect of it, and then change courses from week to week, when ultimately, what have you accomplished? Everybody has a flaw. And nobody had a bigger one than Alabama and Ole Miss in terms of not getting in. But they also both accomplished something. Which to me, Indiana did not. SMU really didn't, and those are the only two that really matter, because everyone else had a ticket in based on something they had done during the season.
Paul Finebaum joining us on the Buyers Right Hotline. He's with us every Monday thanks to Craneworks. As we move ahead, Georgia, a little extra time to prepare. Looks like Carson Beck not going to be able to go. Now we know they're going to get this Notre Dame team. We know Texas is going to face off with Arizona State. A bit of a contrast in style football game. What is your thought now of the SEC in its totality in this playoff, also considering what happened to Tennessee going up to Columbus?
Well, that's going to be the Monday narrative. We already have seen it, and we'll see it again, and we'll hear it today. I'm sure everybody that can dial a phone from Ohio will be calling our program, and they're welcome to, and they can boast and brag, and they should, by the way. I mean, Ohio State was magnificent, and Tennessee was unwatchable. But ultimately, Tennessee, is not the SEC standard bearer. That belongs to Texas and Georgia, and really how they fare is going to help form this narrative. Certainly, Texas has a better chance of getting to the third round than Georgia without Carson Beck, but I think they both will. But everybody's waiting out there. Everybody wants to pounce on the SEC, which is good. But overall, I think the SEC doesn't have to apologize or be embarrassed by anything.
Paul, finally,
go ahead, Greg.
One more, Paul. I think the SEC, it's easy, and we all do this. I'm not saying that you do it or I do it or Cole does it or Saber does it. We all do this, and it's human nature. Do you think it's time maybe, though, to expand beyond the narratives of painting with a broad brush. Hey, Tennessee played bad, the SEC stinks. Ohio State played good, the Big Ten's great. SMU played bad, the ACC is terrible. What have you? I mean, these are kind of individual performances, and I feel like when we draw these big sweeping conclusions about these conferences based on one individual performance, it can be somewhat misleading for how we evaluate these teams in the future. Is that fair? Is it time to maybe get beyond that?
It would be nice, Greg, but ultimately, I don't even think fans, are hung up on the actual teams as much as the people that represent them and the fan base. Like, why do people dislike Alabama around the country? I think it has more to do with the Alabama fans who call in shows like this than it is the actual players or coaches. So I don't think there's much that can be done about that. We live in a much different world than we used to, where any one person's comment, and I'm talking about all three of us because we're seen and heard, will be extrapolated, aggregated, disseminated, and suddenly that becomes the blowtorch for the conference. And it's not even objective, it's not even fair, but it's the world we live in because the dissemination of the information is so skewed. And so little thought is given. I mean, Greg, I've seen comments. Half of comments that you have made before become a narrative of an entire fan base. Just some of it not even related to college football and baseball, for example. And that's just that's where we are. And I tend to think that those of us who speak for a living would be much better off. I think the three of us, if I could speak for us, handle it pretty well. I mean, you have people out there who are so thin-skinned, so paranoid, so afraid of what somebody might say about them that those are really the problems. And by the way, some of those people hold very prominent positions at various networks.
Paul, we always appreciate the time. It's been great visiting with you. Have a happy holiday season and look forward to catching up with you in the next week or so.
Can't wait. Thank you, guys.
Paul Finebaum joining us on the Buyers Right Hotline with us every Monday. Thanks to our friends at Craneworks. We'll get to a break, come back. Some of you waiting to get in on the phones, 800-239-9569, 800-239-WJOX. Tweet in at Mac and Cube. Top three coming up later this hour. And we'll get your feedback on week one, round one of the 12-team college football playoff. Hear from some of the coaches involved and get our thoughts on the rest of the games as well right here on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. 7:36 a.m. Monday, December 23rd, right here on Jocks 94.5. Listen online, jocksfm.com. You can watch live on YouTube now. Just search JOX 945, and you can watch the show live each and every morning. 800-239-9569. You want to get in. We want to take your calls, get your feedback of what you thought from week one of the college football playoff now as a 12-team tournament. A lot of folks immediately reacting to the games not being overly competitive and saying the committee got it wrong, or the field needs to shrink, or we need to reseed. That has been a popular topic that I've seen a lot of people kind of turn to after the results from week one of the college football playoff tournament with 12 teams. If you're looking for better results, maybe Game Day Men's Health can help you. If you lack energy, if you're getting poor sleep, feel on edge, could be the effects of low testosterone, Game Day Men's Health wants to give you a free consultation. All you do, go to GameDayMen'sHealth.com, schedule that, go in, free PSA test, free testosterone test, and they're going to give you a baseline where your health is. They might have reasons for some of those things that are happening to you, and they can knock them out quickly. They have a lot of different services that they offer, and you can save 10% on any of those services by mentioning Cube when you walk in the front door. Locker room environment, low stress, not going to try to push in anything that you don't want to do there at Game Day Men's Health. Multiple weight loss programs as well. Holistic approach to health and wellness with minimal upfront costs from the programs they offer. They want to help you feel better at Game Day Men's Health. Go to GameDayMen'sHealth.com today and schedule that free consultation. Of course, Golden Domer wants to chime in here on a Monday after Notre Dame's college football playoff win. Domer, welcome to the show.
Top of the morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
What's up, buddy?
Morning. First thing I want to say is Merry Christmas. And I want to say y'all have done a great job this year, honestly. I mean, we don't realize – I say it a lot. I give you all a hard time sometimes, but the people of this area don't realize how lucky we are to have the callers, the listeners, and the hosts that we've got. And we don't ever need to take this radio station and what it brings to this community for granted. And I mean that.
Well, we appreciate that,
That's
Domer.
very kind, my friend.
Ohio State fans might disagree with you, saying we've done a great job.
That's right. I know you got some people fired up, Cole. You got some people fired up. But look, and another thing I want to say, Greg, congratulations on getting to call that game at Notre Dame. I'm very critical of ESPN. I always have been. But ESPN and you did a fantastic job with the call, with the atmosphere, with the sound, with highlighting Notre Dame. There's always been a little bit of a rift between ESPN and Notre Dame because of the NBC contract. But the game day, the showing the stadium, the highlighting our history, the Marcus Freeman interviews, I believe ESPN earned a lot of respect from a lot of Notre Dame fans over the weekend. And y'all really did a production from the ground up. It was better than anything NBC's done in my entire life.
Well, that's very kind, buddy. I appreciate that. There's a lot to celebrate and a lot to enjoy when you're doing a Notre Dame game. We were just blessed and lucky to have the opportunity. Yeah,
and I'll say this, the kind of the feelings you had about going to Notre Dame, I was a Notre Dame fan since I was 10. I refused to go to any other game until I could go to Notre Dame because I wanted my first experience to be at the University of Notre Dame. So after I got married, I had a 1-year-old daughter. I saved up, and me, my daughter, and my wife drove the 10 hours to South Bend, Indiana. And there's just nothing like, you can go to I've been to other places now, and they're all great, but there's just something about Notre Dame, and I think you could probably speak upon this now after you've been there. You walk in the gates, you're at Notre Dame. You're not driving anywhere. You're walking in. You're on campus. From the landscaping to the architecture to the buildings to the environment, the Golden Dome being in the shadow of Touchdown Jesus, the cathedral, and then on game day, there's just nothing like it. You got the bagpipe players, you have the trumpets in the dome. Notre Dame is just a very unique place. And like you said, if you're a Notre Dame fan or not, I took my father-in-law out there. I've taken my buddies out there, all avid Alabama fans that love talking bad about Notre Dame. There is just something special about it. And even if you don't want to cheer for them, they represent college football, and they represent something about college football that unfortunately we've lost a little bit along the way. And so I'm just really glad that ESPN got to celebrate that. I'm glad you got to experience that. And like I would say, all my Alabama brothers and Auburn brothers and Cole and anybody, if y'all ever want to go to Notre Dame, I would love to host you because it's like nothing you'll ever experience. And I'm just so glad that Notre Dame is getting a little bit more on the map and is kind of showing this because I think they do represent a little bit of something that we've kind of lost along the way. And I just think it's just such a great, unique place. And it changed my life going there. I'm just going to be honest with you.
It's special. It's definitely special. I mean, it's a faith-based institution, so that obviously takes it to another level. There's just something very special about all of it, whether it's the grotto, the basilica, the walk from the basilica to the grotto. Sean went to mass. I'm not Catholic, but I went and walked through it after the fact.
Sure.
And it was just really cool, man. I mean, it's a cool place. It's a
How
special
much
place.
of the pregame did you get to experience?
You know what's funny is like we oftentimes think that we're so different. Everybody thinks we're so different. Like Notre Dame and the tradition, and it very much has it has a unique feel for sure. But there's a lot more in common with the Southern schools than people realize, with just the tradition, the environment, the excitement. Faith-based as a priority for a lot of the people that follow them. It's really neat. It's really a cool place.
Yeah.
So,
you brought on. Sorry, I didn't interrupt you, but you said something too about the whole wine and cheese kind of atmosphere, and
that was what I was thinking, just based on other places I've been that have a similar fan base. It's just that's what I was thinking. It wasn't that.
I thought the same thing. I thought when I'm going to Notre Dame, I'm about to be around some high-class people. This is Notre Dame, Look, Notre Dame is just good old blue-collar Americans that work in factories and are farmers, and that's really how they got their name. I mean, they were the blue-collar school. I mean, that's the only reason we were ever called the Fighting Irish. Notre Dame is a French university. The only reason they were ever called the Fighting Irish because of the poor immigrants that were in that area. The working-class men of that university a lot of them were Irish, and it was the blue-collar side of it. So I know Notre Dame's got the glit and the glamour and the NBC contract, but Notre Dame represents a lot of just good old American, just country people that love the university, and also they have that side of it. But then they also have the national draw of the subway fans, with Nook Rockne getting on the bus and traveling all across the country before that ever was done. I mean, think about what that's like to take a bus of a football team to California in the early 1900s. I mean, it just totally changed the landscape of college football. And there's so many, with the University of Alabama and the University of Notre Dame, there is so many ties from Frank Thomas playing for Nook Rockne, then coming to Alabama, bringing a lot of the same traditions. I mean, it's just Alabama, when Alabama's great, when Notre Dame's great, when Michigan's great, when Ohio State's great, it's great for college football. And I just, I know a lot of people are, upset exactly with how the playoffs going, but we got to see one of the most historical sites host a playoff game, and the buzz around that game, it was just awesome. I mean, that's what college football really should be about. It's not just about the national championships, and it's not just about TV ratings, and it's not just about your conference or whatever conference. It's about celebrating these universities, the schools, and the communities. That's what it's really about. That's why we are not the NFL. We are about the communities, the universities, and what it means to the people.
Domer, appreciate the call. So you're saying that game Friday night that Greg's crew put together on television, better than Cheers, better than Saturday Night Live, ER, Seinfeld, Friends, Cosby Show, Letterman.
I don't know if he's
Columbo,
thinking like all NBC related broadcasts.
This is
now,
us.
I mean,
better than all that.
Better than anything on Peacock.
He said it's the best thing NBC's ever
done. The
done.
Office. I mean, that's a pretty high bar right there.
Star Trek, L.A. Law.
Oh, now we're getting
Little House on the Prairie, Sanford and Son, originally an NBC
Sanford
show.
Son's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Family Ties.
That's a good one.
All better. Greg,
family
you guys
ties
shot
or family
right to
matters?
the top. You guys shot right to the top right there. I'll go Family Ties over Family Matters. I was not a fan of Urkel at one single point in his existence as a character. Never.
Rank your family, fill in the blanks. Family Ties, Family Matters.
Family Feud,
Family
number
Guy?
one.
Family Feud.
Yes, that's number one for me.
Family Guy?
Family Guy's up there.
Family Guy.
That'd be up there.
All in the Family.
House on the
No, it doesn't count.
Prairie is not family, so that's not going to be in there.
Fast and the Furious, they're about family.
What else do we have?
Family and the Furious. That's the 13th.
Take that one.
That's the 13th sequel.
Yeah.
Vin Diesel has great grandkids.
I might go Family Feud 1, Family Guy 2. I can't even put Family Matters in there. Honestly, I'd find something else to get it in there. Family Ties would be 3.
Okay.
We Are Family, the song, 4.
Makes sense.
We are family.
Olive Garden, when you hear your family, that
That's
counts.
it, too. Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, but now it's catchphrases. Yep.
Absolutely. So, All right, your feedback, continue to get it in, 800-239-9569. Thoughts on the college football playoff over the weekend. Did they get it right? Did this prove that they got it wrong? In your mind, a lot of folks are saying that is how they feel after these games took place. We got college football and NFL today. We'll get to some of that. But first, G-Mac, tell our listeners about Crocker Moving Services.
Well, they're a local company owned by an Iraq War veteran, Eric Crocker. Crocker believes in hiring movers you can trust to complete full background checks and run drug tests on every single employee. These are good guys, and you can trust them in your home. Whether you need your whole home packed up and moved, your company headquarters moved across the country, or you just want them to come rearrange your living room, these guys got you covered. They also do deliveries for furniture that you purchased and need to get to your home. So call or visit them online today for a free quote. The website's crockermovingservices.com. That's crockermovingservices.com. Support your veterans by choosing Crocker Moving Services for your next move.
Will and Grace, Fraser, 30 Rock,
30
Bonanza,
Rock was pretty funny.
Columbo, Golden Girls, all better. Friday night broadcast of Indiana Notre Dame.
The Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. It has Santa in it.
I
know him. Speaking of Santa, I think we watched Elf 5 times this weekend.
I watched it last night.
Did you? We did too. We watched it twice last night, so beat you. Let's watch it again. All right. Sounds good. So from 4 to 6, we watched it. From 6 to 8, we watched it. Full send.
We haven't gotten to Elf yet. My kids are stuck on the Santa Claus this year. I think they've watched it 8 times.
Ooh, we need to go.
Okay.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I've been thinking of some, like, we can't watch. They were trying to watch Christmas Vacation. I'm like, yeah, buddy, we're not quite ready for that one yet.
No.
Isn't it rated R?
We're not ready for that one.
Is it
But
rated
I think
R?
I know the first one was. I don't know if that one is.
Wow.
I think it's PG-13.
Bill. Yeah.
But I think we'll probably go. Santa Claus today. That's a good one. Is that PG?
Okay.
I believe so.
It should be. It's Disney. I don't see.
Oh yeah, that's a send. Oh yeah.
Hill
The other
Street
one
Blues.
is. Let me give you one other good one.
You guys are better than
Let
that.
me give you one other good one. PG. Jingle All the Way
That movie slaps.
with Sinbad and Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Turtle Man.
So you get some roids, Cole. You'll feel right at home.
Can't wait.
Legendary Phil Hartman
Yeah, Phil Hartman. Yes.
playing a sleazeball.
Just what I need.
Total
Just a little
sleaze.
bit more of that. Yeah. If I could get that in. More steroids in my Christmas. That sounds fantastic. So, I was looking for the Santa Claus. It's PG, correct? Yeah. So there you go. You're safe. But if you're watching Elf, you're good on the Santa Claus.
You would
So,
think.
I had actually a conversation about that Friday night, and I was like, well, they were hammered downstairs, passed out in the mailroom. Like that feels like one
That's
you'd have to
true, right.
explain
Yeah,
at one point. But
Those Rangers were a little scary.
yeah, just a little. All right, so get to a break, come back, and get to our top 3 next on Mac and Cube in the morning. 7:52 a.m. Monday, December 23rd on Jocks 94.5. Get to our top three. We usually keep it NFL related on Mondays. Damian, what do you have on tap for today?
We got the top three NFL performances from over the weekend. Starting off with Chuba Hubbard, running back for the Carolina Panthers. 25 carries, 152 yards, 2 touchdowns with the game-winning touchdown, and a 36-30 victory over the Arizona Cardinals, officially eliminating the Arizona Cardinals from playoff contention in the NFC West. Also an NFC West team that fell over the weekend. How about the Minnesota Vikings knocking off the Seattle Seahawks 30-27? Justin Jefferson, 10 catches, 144 yards, 2 touchdowns. And believe it or not, the Tennessee Titans make an appearance here on the losing end after
Of course they do.
We set up Jonathan Taylor, running back for the Indianapolis Colts. All he did was go out there and run for 29 rushes, 218 yards, and 3 touchdowns in a 38-30 win over the Tennessee Titans. Jonathan Taylor had 2 touchdowns for over 65 yards. One was 68, and the other was 70 yards on his first touch in the second half. Just to add insult to injury.
Just good design on those plays.
Oh my God!
We're gonna mention abysmal stuff. Why not the Giants?
Oh,
and their Penix's debut. Hey, congrats! But gifted a couple pick sixes.
Yeah, they
but
did.
It didn't really matter
at all. And Kyle Pitts, his NFL career is not going the way I thought it would coming out of Florida. At first, you kind of blame it on the quarterbacks as it was a little inconsistent. But the pass that he dropped yesterday hit him right in the hands, lands right into the Giants defender, and he takes it for an interception. And Kyle Pitts is not what I thought he was going to be.
I think a lot of people thought he was going to be a really good NFL player.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can be too flex, though.
Is it too big to be a receiver?
No, just too much flex.
Too much.
Yep.
Stiff.
Man.
Soft.
Not soft.
Super.
Look how soft.
You don't think he'll get his hand in?
Look at the catch radius.
He's just not good.
Yeah. And it's very underperformed because, again, when you show flashes in Florida, you're thinking, oh, man, if he can kind of Jimmy Graham his way in the NFL, he'll probably find a way to.
You had Bijan and him, and all you had to do is figure out something decent at quarterback. And, it looked like he had the offensive line intact. It just hadn't worked.
It hadn't. And, honorable mention, Derrick Henry, 162 yards on the ground against the Pittsburgh Steelers over the weekend, that Saturday night matchup there as Baltimore knocks off the Pittsburgh Steelers 34-17.
What channel was that on? I know it sounds bad that I'm asking that, but I couldn't find it.
It was on Fox.
Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah.
It was.
Dang, bum, I missed it.
Didn't get a chance
sounds like it.
Bum, I saw it.
Great.
Pittsburgh did a lot to be able to assist in
They did.
Baltimore winning that game. So, yeah.
Hey, shout out to Marlon Humphrey with the pick six.
Yep.
He said he wasn't taunting on the way in the end zone. He said he wanted to he wanted to pitch it to his defensive teammate to get into the end zone, but he was too far. He was too far away.
If you say so.
Makes sense to me.
He stretched the ball out like 15 yards.
No Jaden Daniels here. 5 touchdown passes.
He did. He had a great job. Great game.
No, we need to talk Titans.
They beat the Eagles.
Yeah, and the Colts beat the Titans.
Yeah.
Wow.
A rookie quarterback threw 5 touchdowns and beat the best team in the league. And
he also talked about Carolina.
Titans?
He also talked about Carolina and them beating Arizona. Like anybody cares.
Hey.
That was literally the lowest rated NFL game maybe ever.
Stop that.
It could have been if it didn't go to overtime.
The exact opposite of what's on NBC.
They combined for fewer wins than the Eagles have this year. And the Commanders get the double-digit wins and beat them, but
No Lions either.
Nope.
None of that.
No Jags Raiders update from you over the weekend.
No.
Oh, you know what? I mentioned
Bigsby
Carolina and
50 yards.
Phoenix. I think
Carlson looked good too.
All right.
Jags Raiders, that one might have bottomed out. The ratings right there.
Hey, Brian Thomas.
He had a good day.
He did.
Yeah. Andy Burcham next. Hour number 2 underway. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Find the Jocks app in your app store. iPhone, Android, you can download that for free and tune in anytime you want from anywhere you want. Auburn gets a commitment from Georgia Tech wide receiver Eric Singleton late last night. 1,468 yards, 9 touchdowns receiving, had 21 carries, 131 yards. Greg, he's a guy that can be extremely valuable in this offense. You can move him. Quick throws can turn into explosive plays. And that's a great get for Hugh Freeze and company.
I'm not sure. Look, Jackson Arnold's a great pickup. I think he's awesome. And, of course, quarterback is far more impactful than wide receiver. But as far as, like, pound for pound, guy that can really make a difference, man, this is a big pickup. I mean, I'm such a believer in Eric Singleton. I've loved him for years. I think his versatility, even what we saw last year, I think there's more in the tank there with what you can do with them, because Malik Rutherford was kind of the slot jet sweep versatility guy. And Singleton was kind of the deep threat. I think there's a lot more that you can do with Singleton that we haven't seen yet. So I think there's an even higher level of productivity that's likely coming with his skill set and what he has available to him. I love the pickup for Auburn. I think he's going to be great.
Absolutely. All right, Andy Burcham joins us each and every Tuesday, but because tomorrow, Christmas Eve, going to join us today to discuss Auburn, and he joins us thanks to our friends at Craneworks.
Lift it, load it, grade it, grind it, move it, haul it, rig it, dig it, Craneworks, Rentalworks, yeah, the big dog's got it.
The voice of the Auburn Tigers, Andy Burcham, on Mac and Cube in the morning is brought to you by Craneworks. Lifted, buy it, rented, the big dog's got it. Now, Andy Burcham.
Andy, I would say that Eric Singleton news, the best news of the weekend for Auburn fans, but I don't think anything could top a lot of Auburn fans' joy with what Janai Broome looked like Saturday afternoon here in Birmingham. The uncertainty of what it was going to look like, when he was going to be back, how he was going to be when he came back. To get him back, and then to get him back like that, I know was a happy sight for a lot of Auburn basketball fans.
Well, it is. And we just, when he left that game last Tuesday at the 2 minutes and 18 seconds in against Richmond, you really had to wonder, when would Auburn get him back? And the first bit of good news was the fact that it was a strain and not a tear in that right shoulder. Apologize. You can tell I'm at home because the dog's barking here in the background. But then the news came out that it was a strain. You just don't know if he's going to be back, and you don't even know if he'll play against Purdue and perhaps Monmouth, get him ready for Missouri in the first game of the SEC. And then he started practice on Thursday, and he practiced on Friday. And the word was they were going to try him on Saturday, and he looked good at the shoot around at Legacy Arena. Obviously, they had done some work with him in the days since the injury, and then he just went out and was Janai Broome Saturday in front of a great, great crowd at Legacy Arena, most of which were Auburn, over 15,300 on hand for that ball game. And it was a great atmosphere at Legacy Arena. And Auburn did what it has done in almost every game this season. It was tied at 15 at the 12:37 mark of the first half. And it was back and forth for that first basically 7.5 minutes. And then Auburn put the hammer down and went on a 16-2 run and just did not look back against Purdue. And that's a good Purdue team. It's not the national championship runner-up team that it was a year ago. But, the thing that I looked at and watched with that team Saturday, and Purdue is extraordinarily good at point guard and at the 5. And Auburn was extraordinarily good at the 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. It was just waves of players coming at Purdue at the offensive and the defensive end. And it was a great way for Auburn to go into the holiday break in a great atmosphere and a great Auburn crowd. A lot of those people, guys, as we've talked about before, those folks can't get tickets at Neville Arena to see Auburn play at home. So they had that opportunity 2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago in Atlanta, last Saturday there in Birmingham to come out and watch Auburn play. It was a great day, and it was certainly great see Janai out there doing what he's done. And another double-double for Janai Broome, and he got to rest a little bit down the stretch. And those guys are now, I think just about everybody is home with family right now, and then they'll be back, and we'll get ready for Monmouth on December 30th.
You know, it's funny. I mean, Andy, I was obviously all in on football mode last week, was fully aware that Janai was hurt, and had no idea until I had the game on Saturday on one of the side TVs, and literally halfway through the first half, I'm sitting there like, is that Janai Broome? Like, I thought it was at the absolute earliest, like 3 or 4 week injury. And it's remarkable how quickly and how unaffected he looked throughout the course of the game. And I think Purdue's pretty good. I mean, we found out earlier this year just how capable they are. They gave Bama all they wanted a couple weeks back. So this is a heck of a performance against a pretty good team. So not that you needed more confidence in Auburn hoop, but is there now more because of the performance this weekend?
Yeah, I think so. You know, you look back on the body of work right now, and Auburn, even against this non-conference schedule, is 11-1 right now. I thought realistically, this was probably 2 or 3 losses for Auburn, with the likes of Duke and Iowa State and perhaps North Carolina. We thought even UConn at that point with Ohio State. And so, you know, a 2 or 3 loss, and that, you know, you're fine at that point. And the one loss that Auburn had was at Duke, which in a lot of the polls is a top 3 team right now. By the way, a Duke team that's going to get a whole lot better as the season goes along because they play so many young players, and they're very talented, and they played well at home. But that's a game that Auburn could have won, and that's the idea you get from those players. And so for this team to be 11-1 and playing the way it is right now, other than the Iowa State game, and remember, Auburn trailed Iowa State by 18 in the first half, by 16 at halftime, and came back and won it. It wasn't quite a buzzer beater, but pretty close on the tip in by Janai Broome. Every other Auburn win has been a dominating win for Auburn, and that includes North Carolina and Memphis and Ohio State and Purdue at this point. And then the other games that you thought Auburn would win. So, yeah, I think there is a little bit more confidence after that win against Purdue, with the uncertainty of, well, is Janai even playing in this game going in? Or if he is, how effective will he be? And, you know, even when he wasn't on the floor, and it's been this way all year long, you know, Chaney Johnson comes in, and Chaney gives you an inside-outside threat. And Dylan Cardwell is playing the best basketball of his long Auburn career right now. And Denver Jones at the point is so good, not only as your point guard running the offense and shooting, but he's as good as an on-ball defender as Auburn's had at guard in a long time. And then you have Miles Kelly, and then you bring Tahad Pettiford and Ja'Kai Howard off the bench. Chad Baker-Mazara just is an irritating force for an opposing team. So I like the way this team is playing, no question about it. But this is not a team that is satisfied with what has done so far, partly in part because you're about ready to go into a Southeastern Conference schedule. Guys, there's never been an SEC that has been this deep, at least at this point of the season, as the one that we're about to see starting in early January. And as tough as this non-conference season has been, the SEC will be even tougher this year.
You mentioned Andy Burcham joining us on the Buyers Right Hotline. He's with us every week thanks to Craneworks. Janai Broome, 23-11, 7th 20-point double-double this season. That's the most in Division I for him, and obviously coming back from that shoulder injury. It's a team that's going to get Monmouth on the 31st, Andy, and then SEC play will begin. I know you haven't dialed in, seen maybe every SEC team the way that you would like to, but with that depth, just surface level, how does Auburn match up with some of the upper tier teams in the Southeastern Conference that they will face off against in the regular season?
Well, I think Auburn matches up well with anybody that Auburn plays right now. I don't think I'm arrogant in saying that. I just think what we've seen from Auburn right now is that this team matches up against anybody. But, you get a Missouri to open up the conference that a year ago ended the year and didn't win an SEC game. And until yesterday in St. Louis against Illinois, they had run off 10 or 11 straight wins after they lost to Memphis. And one of those wins was against, at that time, number 1 Kansas. You still have the number 1 team in the country in Tennessee coming to town in late January in Auburn's outlet game. And I think that will be a high-profile game, and there's all kinds of talk about does College Game Day come to town for that. You still have an Alabama team that was picked by many to win the Southeastern Conference, both home and away, and you close the season against Alabama at Neville Arena. Who knows what will be on the line when that game rolls in? It is a vastly improved Mississippi State team that you get. Kentucky is better than it was a year ago. Arkansas is better than it was a year ago. Florida, a team that Auburn faced in the SEC championship game a year ago, is just as good or even better than it was a year ago. South Carolina is a factor as well. You still have to go to an Oklahoma team that I believe is still undefeated on the season. You go, your second conference game is Auburn's first ever trip in the SEC to Texas, which is a power. So this schedule is about to get really, really rugged for everybody in this league, including Auburn. But I do think that Auburn matches up well with anybody just because Auburn can beat teams in so many different ways. It is not just the Janai Broome show, which has been pretty spectacular to call so far this season. But it's not just one guy. It's multiple guys that this Auburn team can put out on the floor and contribute and make big, big plays game in and game out.
All right, Andy, we appreciate the time. It's always good catching up with you. I know we did it a day early this week, and we're appreciative of that. Hope you have a happy holiday season and look forward to catching up with you after the break.
I appreciate it, Cole, Mac. I hope you guys have a Merry Christmas, happy holidays. Hope it's a safe time for everyone. And I look forward to what becomes of the rest of this year for not only Auburn basketball, but Auburn athletics. I certainly appreciate it, guys.
Absolutely. Thank you, Andy.
Wasteworks, the Quainworks company, provides roll-off dumpster rentals in the Birmingham area with a range of sizes and fast service. They are your source for local dumpster rentals. Visit wasteworksusa.com for a quote. Any bowl assignments coming up?
I will be on the Pop-Tarts Bowl on the 28th, the First Responder Bowl on the 3rd, I believe, and radio for Greg's game, which is the Sugar Bowl.
Wonderful. I hope
Greg's
the quarterfinal games are better than the first. Yeah.
Yeah, it's purely mine. It's not Notre Dame's. It's not the Sugar. It's
Greg's.
It's not Georgia's. It's Greg's. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, we'll have a little Mac and Cube love going there in the pre and post.
There you go. Guys, I hope you have a Merry Christmas, guys. I certainly appreciate it today.
Thanks, Andy. We'll catch up soon. Andy Burcham joining us on the Buyers Right Hotline. He's with us each and every week, thanks to our friends at Craneworks. And speaking of those college football playoff games, need to get back to those. On the other side, we'll try to do that. Auburn did take down Purdue, number 16 team in the nation, 87-69. Janai Broome, as I mentioned, 23-11. Purdue shoots 39% from the floor. Auburn shoots 55% from the floor. They were 10 of 26 from behind the three-point line. Auburn outscored Purdue 44-28 in the paint. I mentioned that they get Monmouth next on the 31st. Alabama took down Kent State, one that almost qualifies for our final segment of the day. Kent State, 2 of 27 from behind the three-point line. They lost 81-54. Alabama out-rebounded Kent State 60-40. Alabama was 18 of 35 from the free throw line, 9 of 35 from behind the three-point line. They will get South Dakota State next on the 29th. So UAB wins over Alcorn State, 91-74. Alcorn stays winless. UAB gets over 500. They're 7-6. Lindenborg, 14-12. So another double-double for him. They will be at North Texas on the 31st. So some college basketball news before we get back into the college football playoff, which we will in just a few moments. But first, G-Mac, tell our listeners about Bromberg's and what everybody can find there.
Well, the very best service is the guarantee. You'll absolutely understand what I'm talking about the second you walk into one of their 2 locations in Mountain Brook Village or the Summit. I got to run over there today. Couple of late presents to add. So fired up about that. But I also know that it's helpful to me because Meredith's kind of put a wish list together. We have a few salespeople that we've worked with there that we have a great understanding of what it is she might want. So it's easy for me to walk in, make the purchase, and I'm out and on my way. Go check them out. You'll understand what I'm talking about. It's really amazing the type of service you receive. You feel like family when you walk in the door and you know you're buying things that are going to last a lifetime. So call them today or you can go and see them in person, Mountain Brook Village in the Summit, or you can go online at brombergs.com.
All right, when we come back, we'll get into the rest of the college football playoff games we have yet to discuss and break down. Get your feedback as well after the break on Jocks 94.5. Ball playoff. We got to get back into it. Couple folks chiming in, though, via Twitter first, at Mac and Cube. You can always tweet into the show, be a part there. I want to get to little bit of the feedback. The Unhipster tweets in at Mac and Cube. No way Greg's broadcast was better than Alf. Alf was originally an NBC show and was not included in the top 30 list that I was able to pull up and do a little background checking on.
That'd be close.
Mr. Belvedere, NBC?
I feel like it might have been ABC, but it might have been.
I don't recall.
I don't think it's top 30.
Where that was. If you missed it earlier, Domer said the greatest broadcast, better than anything NBC had ever done with what Greg and his crew were able to do on Friday night. Stephen in Texas tweets in, was a great call Friday night. Golden Domer spot on. Upper Midwest folks are down to earth, rabid, maniacal college football fans. Instead of wine and cheese, it's brats and Italian beef sandwiches galore. Perhaps an old-style beverage or two. Stephen, might I invite you to my mentions from Ohio State fans on the down-to-earth good folks. Enjoy that one.
Are you getting killed by Ohio State fans?
Oh, I am.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's
What for?
Well, just
breathing.
saying that I
SEC
felt pretty
homer.
comfortable about Tennessee winning that game, which fully admitted I was wrong. Swinging a miss. Missed on Indiana. But other folks have gotten every pick that they've ever made right. Mac Attack tweets in, does Greg play OG Fortnite? I have no idea the context of this, where it came from, but it is a question coming into our show.
OG Fortnite they owned the pregame for all the playoff games in the first round.
Oh, yeah, it was there.
did.
So you had to drop in and get some of them OG Fortnite reads.
I think I was eating sausage balls at the Sunday school Christmas party when maybe those ads were running.
Heck yeah.
I did my best job walking around saying hello, trying to be nice, having conversations with everybody for the 30 minutes we were there before the game started.
With your headphones in,
and then it was
as
like
you were listening to the pregame,
just legit locked in. After that, stood there and talked to some folks, but it was like eyes did not get away from the television.
I'm so glad because Saturday we had Christmas at my lady's mother's house, which is it's not an apartment and wasn't that many of us, and I was fully expecting not to be able to watch any of it and have to go home and catch up or do something else. But I got there and her brother was like, I thought watching games to have something on in the background. I was like, oh, yes.
Yeah.
Like I didn't have to be the one to ask. He just intentionally did. I'm like, all right, cool. We're good.
I ran into another problem Saturday morning. I took each of my children shopping for their siblings and their mom.
Right.
I want to get them into wanting to get things for their siblings.
Okay.
And so I kind of tried to make a big deal out of it, and I had not done that with my daughter yet. So I was like, let's run out Saturday morning. Even if I miss a little bit of the beginning of Penn State SMU, I think I'll be okay. We'll watch the tape again on Sunday. And that ended up turning into about half a day after the first quarter of that game. I said, you know what, honey, let's go get lunch. And she's like, can we go to Mama Goldberg's? And I was like, we will go to Mama Goldberg's, and we'll just go do whatever else you want for the next few hours because I don't need to be home till 3.
Yep, we're good.
We are good. Once the pick sixes started rolling out, we just said, you know what, we'll go hang out some other places. Jolly tweets in. Go ahead.
It was pretty underwhelming to see the first couple pick sixes, and then they get the ball inside the 20, and it's like 14-0, and they just got stopped on 4th and 1 on the QB sneak, and you feel like hey, maybe this is going to get interesting after all. Nope, second play pick. No.
Great play on that pick, but and then the 4th down, rolling out, you try to throw to the tight end, just run the ball. I mean, it was ugly. Jolly tweets in, not an exciting weekend of college football, kind of bummed. Cole, you did a good job with the hatred spit at you, handled it with a lot of professionalism. GMAC, great call at Notre Dame. Going forward, I'm not sure about 12 to 16 teams. Downsizing seems more appropriate. That ain't happening.
Someone didn't watch FCS.
So there's one thing I've learned having kids is you can always put the toothpaste back in the tube.
Every time. Your kids ask for more toothpaste often?
No.
If that brush is not completely covered,
really?
I mean, it's like you're stealing their oxygen.
Toothpaste in your house.
We
don't have very tasty toothpaste.
Oh, we got different kinds for each one.
We got the all-natural.
Don't give the 4-year-old the red. He's got to have the blue.
Yep.
Goodness
what kind of toothpaste you want? I don't know. I'll take some of the blue. It's like Vegas Vacation when Cousin Eddie's going through the buffet line. What do you want? I'll take some of the yellow.
It's right there on the top. Get that going.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's we're a little picky in the toothpaste department in our house. All right, little bit of feedback there coming to the show. 800-239-9569. You want to be a part, you can get in on the Buyers Right hotline. Getting back into the college football games from over the weekend, we mentioned a lot on Indiana, Notre Dame. Notre Dame defense just spectacular. I thought Derek Brown played well. We mentioned Xavier Watts at safety, Greg, was just unbelievable. Coming down into the box late, making plays, rerouting runs. The coverage from Notre Dame, there was almost no separation from Indiana the entire game, and they had their one-on-one shots. They couldn't hit them. They rushed for 73 yards. It was just top to bottom, a dominant performance from that Notre Dame defense.
Really dominant. I think Notre Dame's really good. We've been saying it for a while now. I've said it even after they lost to NIU. I thought it was a really good football team. You know, I think we knew it after we saw the A&M game. Like, there was a lot to like in that game. Now you could also look at A&M's performance and say, well, why'd they do that? Why'd they stun out of this? Like, they kind of gave Notre Dame some freebies. But it's been a team, we called their game against Navy. I'm like, all right, I don't think Navy's very good, first and foremost. But to dominate like that along both lines of scrimmage, felt like their offensive line was going to be a work in progress. I think they're playing good now. They lost their right guard in the game. It didn't matter. You look also at at what they've had defensively. I mean, they've had a bunch of injuries. Howard Cross been out for a month. They lost their best corner. They lost their best pass rusher off the edge. And it doesn't matter. Like, they still kept playing at a high level. There's a deep group. There's a relentless group. And they're super physical too. Like, that's a physical football team. And I don't think people quite acknowledge or appreciate just how physical they are. They are very, very physical. And I got a lot of respect for them. And I'm telling you, I think they're going to give Georgia all they want. Georgia's a great football team, championship pedigree. But they're going to give Georgia all they want because they will not shy away. If it becomes a bloodbath and a physical war, Notre Dame won't back down. I can promise you that.
All right, so we've pretty much covered that game, and Notre Dame will move on. They'll get Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. How much of it was Penn State? How much of it was SMU? We will take a dive into that game, what we saw, what the tape said. Recap that one, along with Ohio State and Tennessee, Texas and Clemson, all coming up next on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Monday, December 23rd, 8:30 a.m. on Jocks 94.5. A couple other bowl games from over the weekend, not necessarily college football playoff games. Jacksonville State goes down to Ohio. Ohio finishes 11-3. Jacksonville State 9-5. 35 carries, 42 rushing yards for Jacksonville State in this game. Ohio rushes 46 times for 234. Two players go over 100 yards rushing. Coleman Owen goes 11 catches, 140 yards. As Jacksonville State finishes up the season 9-5. And then they announced that Charles Kelly going to be the new head football coach. Clint Trickett going to be the offensive coordinator, quarterback coach. He'll join his dad, who's going to stay as the offensive line coach. Charles Kelly, longtime assistant, G-Mac. He's been a lot of different places, worked with a lot of different people. I'm excited for him to get the opportunity. Great guy, obviously knows ball, knows the area well. I think it's a good get for Jacksonville State.
I'm fired up about it. I think it makes a lot of sense. He's just a guy I don't feel like he's ever really had a chance to run a show. You know what I mean? He's always been well respected. He's always been well liked. I've always enjoyed spending time with him. I've just always wondered, what the heck? Why isn't he ever going to take a head job? Right now, he finally does. I mean, he's been in the business for over 30 years. It's been a long time. He's never even been a head coach at the highest or at the high school level. I mean, he started his career in the early 90s at Central High School as an assistant. Of course, though, played here, is from here. A guy that I've always enjoyed visiting with and spending time with, but has just never really wanted to jump into the driver's seat. So I'm glad he's doing it now and hope that he has tons of success.
All right, so that one over the weekend with Jacksonville State going down in the Staff DNA Cure Bowl. Also, Florida took out Tulane 33-8 in the Union Home Mortgage Gasparilla Bowl. A strong day from Florida. Lagway goes for 305, did have 2 picks. Florida ran for 224 yards. Tulane ran for 69. Physically, this was just a game that belonged to Florida, and it wasn't a super clean game. Put the ball on the ground. I mentioned a couple interceptions, but able to get the win and maybe became one of the more fun bowl games we've seen in a while with Desmond Watson getting the football late.
It's so funny how many people reacted strongly to that. Like, it's not like it was some great run. Like, it was the only thing cares. I felt like 6 or 7 people wanted to. He just kind of fell forward, did he not?
450 pounds. I mean,
I agree, but it was like I felt like the amount of viralness, I guess, if that's a word, on that moment. I was trying to figure out, like, am I not taking it seriously enough? Like, I didn't think it was that impressive.
Just him standing next to the quarterback, though, was enough to go viral. Like,
you don't
just
know what it's like
in
to
the
be
backfield.
big, Greg.
Yeah.
You don't know what it's like.
That was a literal look how big in the backfield.
Yes.
It
was that.
So
it was absolutely that.
All right, 2 others quickly over the weekend. North Dakota State got past South Dakota State 28-21. They'll move on to the FCS championship game. North Dakota State will. The Bison will. 13-2 on the season, 9-0 at home. Montana State stays undefeated. That's who North Dakota State will get in the championship game. 31-17 over South Dakota over the weekend. All right, so back into the college football playoff. SMU Penn State goes Saturday morning, and it was a rough one. 38-10, Penn State gets the win. Kevin Jennings, not the game that he needed or had to have if SMU was going to be competitive. 20 of 36, 195 yards passing, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions. He rushed 8 times for negative 25 yards. He was sacked 3 times. Greg, he couldn't find it, and it wasn't there. He was pressured often. He made some critical mistakes. Some of the decisions were poor. 2 of the worst picks you will see, period. And with him playing that way, there wasn't going to be much of an opportunity for SMU. I'll say this. When you watch it closely, I do think SMU had an opportunity to successfully rush the football because some of the runs that they got going at different points in time, I do think could have been there. Now, I'm not saying for 400 yards, but that could have helped stack some other things on top of it. It's just where you were in the game, you couldn't live that way, and you couldn't go to that kind of a game plan because Penn State already had a comfortable lead, scoring 21 in the second quarter. It was a rough outing for SMU offensively, specifically at quarterback.
It was about as bad as he could play, and I hate it for him. But his mechanics in the pocket are what led to him playing poorly. I mean, we talked about it already. We talked about it all last week. I mean, the guy unnecessarily runs out of the pocket horizontally, and he retreats in the pocket way too often. And you just can't do that against top-tier competition. Like, you're killing your offensive line. I mean, I don't know what you want him to do. Like, he's going backwards more than he was going forwards. There was 5 or 6 plays in the game where he was actually attacking and climbing in the pocket. You can't win like that. I mean, his mechanics in the pocket were going to get him got at some point, and that's what happened. I hate it for him because I think they're a good football team. I really do. Like, I'm not one that sits there and thinks SMU stinks. I just think SMU wet the bed. And I think SMU made a couple of critical errors and just didn't really mount much because there were guys open. I mean, you mentioned the 4th and 1 instead of running it. Like, that tight end, that should be, you could throw it left-handed to that guy and he scores a touchdown. Like, it's not a hard throw. The guy's wide open. He walks in. It's a totally different ballgame if you make that throw.
Or you could just fall forward and pick up a first down. I mean,
I know, but it's first downs or touchdowns. Like, the guy's wide open. How do you miss the throw that bad? I mean, I've seen balls get tipped that were more accurate than that. I mean, he missed it by 7 or 8 yards.
Well, and one of those was tipped up in the air and returned for touchdown. So
he was awful. I mean, I don't know what else to say. I feel bad for the kid. He's a nice kid, but he played terrible. And he's got to clean a lot up in his game because there's a bunch to like about what he can do from a playmaking standpoint, but there's an awful lot of doing too much in there as well. And he needs to settle it down and start to live from within the pocket a little bit more frequently, and he can be more consistent as a result.
And some not on him. The pressure was a lot. I mean, he was under duress often. Penn State racks up 3 sacks, multiple pressures in the game. Dominic DeLuca was great. He had that pick 6 off the tip ball, had 2 interceptions in the game. Was in the backfield a couple of times. There was a lot to like, and it wasn't just Abdul Carter, which a lot of people would normally think. There were some pressures that were able to get home. Zane Durant up front was able to get home. They had him on the move often, and then I think his eyes began to come down a little bit later in the game, and he's obviously just thinking, "Hey, there's going to be pressure. We got to get out of here." But Devon J. Thomas, the big run stopper, he made an impact on this game. It was just, like I said, Greg, I think if they were able to slow things down and try to live on the run game, they would have had a little bit of success. It's just they couldn't have played that style game. You had a couple guys defensively for SMU that I thought did some good things. It's just, once again, the style game that you were in, it wasn't going to be conducive to what they did. Elijah Roberts off the edge was great, but they were going to need a lot of people to be great. And Penn State was able to just throttle back a little bit. Tyler Warren gets a couple direct snaps. Drew Aller didn't have to take any unnecessary risks. I did think he did a good job sort of managing the pocket, moving around, kind of getting the ball out a little bit late, taking his check downs, taking some little dumps to the tight end. And he did all that they needed to do to win this football game because, let's be real, the offense wasn't going to have to do a lot after the way that game was going early.
Yeah, and I also think, too, the run game was good. They stayed committed to it. I do feel like sometimes with Penn State, they would occasionally, I don't want to say outthink themselves, but all right, hey, we've done this enough. Like we've run the mid zone 7 times. Let's get to the inside zone. You don't need to. Like, the mid zone's working good. Stretch zone's working good. Let's not change just because we want to show how creative we are. I think sometimes they can get a little too cute, and I don't feel like that was the case in this game. They kind of just stuck to it, and there was a lot to like with how they performed on both sides of the ball. Yeah,
cuteness came probably in formations and alignment and then motions and shifts, and they got SMU lined up incorrectly a couple of times, able to steal some yards. 40 carries, 189 yards for Penn State rushing in this game. They ran for 3 touchdowns. SMU runs 36 times for 58 yards. Longest play of the game was a Roderick Daniels 28-yard receptions. There just were no explosive plays for SMU in this game. The longest run from scrimmage was 16 yards. So they just couldn't find those. Tyler Warren, I thought was great with what they asked him to do. Singleton, Allen, as you mentioned, with what they were asked to do, running the football, it was a vanilla plan after a dominant performance by the defense and the special teams, and Penn State gets that win, so they'll move on in the college football playoff. Penn State gets Boise in the next round. Ohio State smashes Tennessee. Why? How? What do we see on film? We'll discuss it next on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Monday, December 23rd, 8:43 a.m., Jocks 94.5. Your thoughts on the college football playoff round one? What you liked, what you didn't like, what needs to change, or just thoughts on the individual games as we're going to dive into Tennessee and Ohio State. Why did that one go the way that it did? But don't get caught in the cold like they did there in Columbus or South Bend or State College. Schedule your system checkup now for a Train Comfort Specialist. Train has been recognized 10 consecutive years as America's most trusted HVAC brand and our exclusive home comfort partners here at Jocks. Visit Train.com to find a comfort specialist near you. The weather didn't really impact, I didn't think, any of the games. We thought there would be more wind in your game, Greg, maybe even more wind in Columbus. That didn't seem to impact things. There wasn't a lot of wet ball issues. Didn't see snow during games. It was just the temperatures being cold, which doesn't really impact much as far as going out there and playing a little bit of football. Maybe Tennessee was just affected by the weather. I don't think there's any excuses for how this thing went down. You were spot on about it. I thought Tennessee would be the more physical football team. I didn't think they would have to rely on Nico Iamaleava as much through the air, but this felt like a little bit of a different Ohio State front than we have seen. Seen them be pretty good at times, really good at times. They were outright dominant in this game. They won the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, which I never expected. Tennessee's defensive front, very little impact on this game, and that's where I kind of thought this game would be won. It was a masterful game plan by Chip Kelly. I don't think he's getting enough credit for how this thing went and how they designed some of the misdirection, how he gave Will Howard some easier throws, how they found the one-on-ones and took advantage of them. That's what Tennessee couldn't do because they got a lot of one-on-ones, but they couldn't beat man coverage and be able to get open and create enough space. Ugly performance for Tennessee, G-Mac, but Ohio State deserves a lot of credit for being dominant.
No doubt. They deserve tons of credit for being as dominant as they were. The one thing I would say is that Tennessee has not been good along the offensive line at the tackle spot all year. I mean, they do give great effort, but their tackles are a huge liability. I think even the biggest Tennessee homer would acknowledge that those guys probably concerned you a bit. So I think the ends with Tuimoloau and Sawyer took advantage of a group that's just not very good. I think the offensive line has been a problem. That's the first issue. Number two, you lose Dylan Sampson. That's not only a blow from a productivity standpoint, but it's also a blow mentally. Like to know that your best player is unavailable and it's all on your redshirt freshman quarterback. It doesn't matter what the circumstances are. You're going to have a hard time. Number three, I thought Tennessee's secondary had some holes in it. Now, for them to attack Jermod McCoy as often as they did down the field and to drop it in the bucket as often as they did, man, there's not a lot of guys that are going to make those throws on a regular basis. Like, that was really, really impressive, some of the throws that Will Howard made throughout the game. So there's a lot of reasons why I thought this was a bad matchup for Tennessee. One of the reasons was their tackles. The other reason is I thought Tennessee'd be a little one-dimensional. I didn't think Tennessee's passing attack was very good. I didn't think the receivers were very good, and I also didn't think that Will Howard would carve them up, but I also didn't think that their defensive line of Tennessee would have as little an impact as it did. That was the one area of this game I did not see. You got pressured 6 times in the game. 6. The whole game, 6 pressures. That is a little concerning. So the fact that their D-line had no impact whatsoever was a huge problem.
It was a lot concerning, and it's one of the facets of that team that had to be dominant to win this game, and they just couldn't do it. The Ohio State offensive line got movement in short yardage. I thought they were great in protection. Will Howard had a lot of time to operate in the pocket. 33 carries, 156 yards. It wasn't an all-out dominant day on the ground, but I don't think they also just leaned on the run game, banging their head against the wall, saying we're going to go north and south right at them. Travion, 10 for 82 touchdowns. Quinshon, 10 for 34, 2 touchdowns. It was just enough. And a lot of it were undisciplined fits by the Tennessee defensive front. When you run counter a couple times and cut it back the opposite direction and just nobody's home. And they were able to turn that into explosive plays. I think Chip gave them about 14 variations of counter with motions and different things in that game. The Tennessee linebackers looked like their heads were spinning a lot of the times. They couldn't find where the ball was going to be. It was just an impressive performance by that offense. Will Howard, like you mentioned, great. Jeremiah Smith, off the chart, 6 for 103 and 2 touchdowns for the freshman receiver. They had no answer for him, Greg. And yeah, you keep going to him. If he's going to make those kind of catches and Will Howard's going to give you those kind of throws, you keep taking it down the field, and Tennessee had no answer for it.
That, I think, is a big problem. So I also thought Book Carter would have his hands full with Igbuka. That kind of happened. But, man, I thought Will Howard, if we get that version of Will Howard, no one's beaten Ohio State. I just think, and maybe there's other aspects of it. And, hey, having a clean jersey and feeling comfortable in the pocket's a big part of it as well. But if he plays that well, dude, like, pick your poison. It's going to be really tough sledding. Really tough sledding. So I don't know how you feel about it, but that was the best I've seen him look. And if he is able to take some of the pressure off the run game and the defense, and I don't think you're going to be able to score more than 30 on this team very often. So if they can get to 25 or 30, it's game, set, match. That's the best team. At their best, that's the best team. And we'll see how it all unfolds, but they're the real deal, man.
Especially if we get that kind of performance from that defensive front, which was just overly dominant. They had 6 tackles for loss, 4 sacks. Nico Iamaleava he was on the run for the entire game. He didn't feel like he was comfortable in the pocket more than 2-3 times in the entire game. I give him a lot of credit, too, because he moved around a lot. He took some hits. I mean, he cut a couple runs back inside trying to pick up some dirty yards that a lot of quarterbacks aren't going to be able to do. I thought he showed a lot of toughness in this game, some grit in this game. And going back and watching it a couple times, Greg, like, he didn't have a lot of guys open. I mean, Tennessee did not fare well against man coverage, and I thought you would see a little bit more maybe over the middle of the field, try to take advantage of some of that, or not take advantage of it, but try to find different ways to beat it, and they couldn't do it. Bottom line, couldn't do it. Guys were not open, and even with a couple of one-on-one shot plays down the field, those weren't happening either, and that's going to – you lose your running back, you're not able to run the football against favorable numbers, because you saw Ohio State kind of split the difference. They said, okay, we'll stay out here in the alley, play halfway between the line of scrimmage and those receivers that are way out wide. And it worked because the quick spitters out to the outside, I mean, they couldn't find extra yards. I think 2 players had decent days with run after the catch. When I went back and looked at it, like Braylon Staley, I think had 10 yards after the catch. And I want to say, I can't remember, maybe Peyton Lewis had a couple run after the catch. It was like 40 yards combined after the catch. I mean, Tennessee turned no quick throws into explosive plays.
None. I mean, and honestly, you got to give a lot of credit to how well they tackled. I thought the safeties played great. I thought the linebackers were all over the place. I mean, that's one area that the linebacker play at Ohio State this year compared to previous years is a whole nother level. I don't know if you see it the same way. I think that's one of the most improved groups on their team. And it's going to be very difficult, I think, to consistently move the ball against that group. They're very athletic at the second level. They've solidified the interior. I've always thought that their Ohio State linebackers were a little stiff and a little gettable. We've seen it at times over the years. This group is really not that way. They can run, and they're a real problem to deal with. So not crazy surprised it went the way it went. I thought it was going to be tough sledding for Tennessee. But at the same time, man, I also didn't anticipate Ohio State's offense putting 42 up in the process. I thought it was going to be a low-scoring game where Tennessee was going to have a hard time moving the ball, but I thought Tennessee's defense would show up better than they did. That was probably the most disappointing thing of it, is that their defense was completely out of sorts from the very beginning.
Yeah, specifically that defensive front for Tennessee, man, that was a letdown performance. But also, you give that Ohio State offensive line some credit. You give Chip Kelly some credit. The way they designed it up, a lot of what they did was designed not to allow that group to be. It's not like they went out there and ran inside zone 28 times. I mean, they did a lot to circumvent that group, and Tennessee didn't make the adjustments, I didn't think. They couldn't win one-on-ones. Ohio State did win one-on-ones, and they get to win 42-17, and Ohio State will advance to play Oregon in the next round of the college football playoff. Ryan Day he kind of saw this coming with the leadership on that team, knowing they weren't going to let them down.
I'm proud of our seniors for a lot of reasons. One, for the fact that they were able to finish their last game at Ohio Stadium with a win like that. And, I'm also proud of the way that they responded. I told them in the locker room that, in life, you're going to be defined by the way you handle adversity in life, as a person, as a man, as a dad, And so, to see the way that they responded in this game, you can tell from the jump that they had a look in their eye that they were going to go win this game. And I thought they played that way. So a lot of football ahead of us. Great win. But we're going to enjoy this for 24 hours, and then it's on to Oregon.
Absolutely. And it was a hell of a performance. Kind of cool to see Seth McLaughlin out there going cigar after beating Tennessee again as well. Ryan Day also thought that the offense was just exceptional against the Vols.
I think we did some things in this game that maximize what we have in terms of our strengths and minimize our deficiencies. Not that everything was perfect in this game. It wasn't. But I do think that, and I also thought Will was excellent in this game, played really well, did a really good job of placing the ball in some big-time throws. When he needed to make plays with his legs, he did. And certainly Jeremiah, was dynamite again. But Will was a leader.
More than a leader, G-Mac. I mean, effective. It was his second 300-yard game of the year. It's not like he had gone out and done this every week. They hadn't asked him to do it a lot of weeks, but they needed it in this game, and he was able to deliver.
Yeah, he played great and should feel great. And if they can rally with that type of performance in mind, if that's the now norm for where this team can be offensively at the quarterback spot, and guess what? It's only going to get easier. Like, you're going to be sitting there in domes from this point forward. I mean, they'll play in Pasadena, obviously. That's not going to be weather related. It's not going to get much easier from a throwing standpoint. They're going to be in Pasadena potentially, and Dallas potentially, and then ultimately the national championship, if they get there, will be in Atlanta. So 2 of the next 3 are in domes, and 1 of the next 3 is in Pasadena. So the throwing the ball is only going to get easier from that point forward. And these wideouts, man, they played off the charts good the other night.
Are you surprised that Ohio State, the favorite in this game against Oregon?
No.
Okay.
Are you?
A little bit. I mean, I understand what you said about you feel like this is the best team in the tournament right now, but I also saw Oregon beat Ohio State. So
correct.
That counts for me when they actually play each other. And
power ratings don't change, though. Power ratings do not change.
Okay. Results of games don't either. And saw Ohio State actually win that one. But it's, sometimes it.
Well, the home field's worth 3.5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This will be a neutral site. They're favored by 2.5. They lost by 1. So it makes sense.
Yeah. I didn't expect it to be like a giant line either way, but a little surprising that was Ohio State was the favorite just based on kind of what happened last time. Because I thought there were facets of what Oregon did last time that Ohio State really struggled with. But
yeah,
we'll see what's a little bit different this time around for both of those teams as they will meet in the Rose Bowl presented by Prudential in Pasadena. That'll be Ohio State, Oregon. You'll get Notre Dame, Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. Penn State, Boise in the Fiesta Bowl, and Texas, Arizona State in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. We haven't mentioned too much about that Texas win against Clemson. We'll dive into it, give you some portal updates as well as some coaching news around college football in the next hour of the show. So keep it locked right here on Jocks 94.5 as we dive into Texas and how they looked against the Clemson Tigers. Next. Monday, December 23rd, 9 a.m., McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. A lot of college football playoff discussion this morning. Did they get it right? Bottom line, based on how these teams played out, how much doubt crept into your mind, Greg, just on the results of these games as to if the field was correct or not?
Not a lot. Do I think Ole Miss would have been more competitive than some of the other teams? Perhaps. Do I think Alabama would have been more competitive than some of the teams? Perhaps. I don't know that, though. I mean, it's just, to me, I'm not really one that operates in the hypotheticals when it comes to evaluating these things, because it's the first time anything like this has ever happened. So I do think we need to be flexible, though. Like, we need to acknowledge, hey, the teams that did not have high level strength of schedule did not play well in the format. So what should we prioritize next year? Next year, I think there should be a greater premium on having played quality non-conference schedule and playing a very difficult conference schedule in some cases. Like, this is all flexible and it all needs to be adjusted. And this year they valued win-loss record, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. That's how this year's committee valued quality. But next year's committee needs to acknowledge that the teams that had weak strength of schedules didn't perform well when given the opportunity to play in the playoff. And it needs to be adjusted going forward. Simple as that.
One of those teams, I don't know if we would really bang on Tennessee's strength of schedule that much, that didn't perform well, would be Tennessee. Ohio State's 25-point margin of victory, largest versus an SEC opponent in school history, third largest in a postseason bowl game in Ohio State history. Ryan Day gets his first win against an SEC team. Will Howard's 82.8% completed on 311 yards. 6th game with a completion percentage of at least 80 this year. That breaks a tie with C.J. Stroud for the most such games by any Ohio State quarterback over the last 20 seasons. Jeremiah Smith, I mentioned, 6 for 103, 2 touchdown receptions, 12 touchdowns receiving this year. He ties Rondale Moore in 2018 for the most in a season by a freshman in Big Ten history, 1,000 receiving yards as well. That's the first time that a freshman has done that in the history of Ohio State football. 6th player in Ohio State history with 100 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns in a bowl game. Josh Heupel said they're capable of being better after this game.
It wasn't our best football tonight. When you're playing a good football team, margins are thin. You're on the right side of it. Doesn't have to look like it did tonight, but it won't look good. And ultimately, we're capable of playing better than we did tonight, and that's not taking anything away from Ohio State.
Heupel also just on Nico Iamaleava's play in the loss to Ohio State.
Kid's gonna lay it on the line and compete with everything that he's got, and he did that tonight. There's some things that he'd want back, and that could be a read, a throw, but continued to play and fight, and there were a lot of moving parts within our personnel around him, and when you're playing that position, you need 10 other guys around you playing at a high level too. And I said at the beginning, we just didn't coach well, play well enough collectively as a group to do the things you have to in this one.
All right, so that's Josh Heupel on Tennessee's 42-17 loss to Ohio State. Tennessee will finish 10-3. Ohio State finishes 11-2. Texas will move to 12-2. Clemson finishes 10-4 on the season. Game got a little bit competitive later. I thought the 4th down attempt was the only real bad call that Texas made in the game. Just being close to midfield, I thought it was a little unnecessary at that time, and I didn't really feel like there was an emphasis of it on the broadcast, but I allowed Clemson to close in a little bit and make that thing tighter than probably it needed to be. Cade Klubnik did some really nice things in the game, especially late, 336 yards, 3 touchdowns, did throw a pick. Quinn Ewers just 17 of 24, 202. Had the touchdown. The 1 interception bounces off the shoulder pads of one of his receivers, so it wasn't really on him. He was effective. The difference was the rushing attack. And we mentioned Clemson's challenge trying to run on specifically the interior of that Texas defensive line. 24 carries, 76 yards. Texas runs 48 times, Greg, for 292 yards. Wisner was masterful in just being patient, finding a crease, getting north and south. And that little side-to-side zone scheme that Texas has implemented this year, it was going against Clemson. And it's one of those things where it's a little bit hit and miss when you got a D-line that's going to get upfield on you. A lot of times that's going to be problematic, but I felt like Texas had the antidote for it. Just allow them to do what they were going to do, get a hat on a hat, and let your backs do work, and they did that.
Well, the big thing with me for Texas, I thought they played really well. I think they should feel great about their performance, but I don't understand, like you alluded to, the fourth down stuff. I mean, I understand you kind of are who you are. That all makes sense to me, but their fourth down stops are what made this thing dicey. Was it not? I mean, very dicey. So that would be the one thing I'd assess moving forward. Like when you have a talent advantage, you don't need to be too overly aggressive. Like make them go the distance, make them go the length of the field. But I thought the way they ran the ball was excellent. I think that's going to make them more dynamic. I thought they were pretty efficient in the passing game. There was a lot to like there. I do think there were a couple big plays given up, which is the tiniest bit concerning, but not something that I'm going to totally freak out about just yet. But it's worth noting that they probably don't want to be in a scenario like that moving forward against teams that are a little bit better on the defensive side, stopping the run. So very good performance, but I think a lot to clean up at the same time.
You know, the first two, you're at the Clemson 18, the Clemson 36, I guess. I mean, how much of that do you think was, you know, some of the discussion about red zone offense and, you know, having some issues there? I don't know. Maybe feeling like, you know, people don't think we can finish drives. It felt like you said, maybe a little bit of a point to prove. But that's really, I mean, you had it 31-17 at that point with less than a minute to go in the third. You punt that down, flip the field, make Clemson work again instead. You know, they go make it 24-31. Then you extend it again to 38-24, and that's where it would finish. But I mean, all of a sudden, you make that thing a one-score game, and it felt like you could have controlled that. And I get the confidence in the defense. They did play well early, but it also brought up one of the questions that you and I feel like we've had this entire season, Greg, and that is, how tested is the Texas secondary? One, because of the teams that they've played. Two, because of how good that front has been. And you saw some Clemson receivers make some nice plays. Klubnik made some good throws, but I know Jahdae Barron had a great year. Won the Thorpe Award, had a really nice year. Taft has had an excellent season. He made a couple big plays down the stretch to lock this game up. But I do think it's one thing that you come out of this game and say to yourself, all right, are we facing any elite passing attacks moving forward? Because that's the one thing that would maybe scare me if I was a Texas fan right now.
Agree, and that was the Achilles heel last year, right? It was a bad matchup for them when they played against Washington. As a result, they got. They were better than Washington, pound for pound, at, you know, gosh, of the 10 different factors that would determine the game, they were superior to Washington on probably 9 of 10. But their passing defense against Washington's passing attack was tilted heavily in favor of Washington, and that's why they lost the game. So that would be the one thing that would concern me, is it's like, okay, man, rinse and repeat. That's kind of the same problem we had last year. Hopefully, who they might run into, maybe the pass rush will be able to get home and have a little bit more of an impact. But I thought Klubnik played really well. I thought he battled. He gave him a chance. There was a lot to like there. And to be honest with you, Dylan Gabriel will give him a lot of fits, but I think Klubnik gave him about as many fits as you're probably going to have when you take into account the quality of the receivers as well.
No doubt. Now Texas gets Arizona State in the Peach Bowl. That should be one that Texas, from a matchup perspective, looks pretty good in. Now, Arizona State could control the tempo of this game if you can find a way to manage the defensive line, get the run game going. I think Arizona State may be able to find a little bit there through play action, some different things, moving the pocket, but it doesn't look like there are going to be a ton of ways, a ton of paths to victory for Arizona State in that game. But then, as you stated, potentially getting Oregon or maybe the Ohio State Will Howard-led team that we just saw could end up being problematic for that Texas secondary. From the bottom of the bracket, I don't really know who is overly scary from that perspective. If Texas were to make it to the national championship game, just from that area. I mean, So your most difficult portion of your path might end up being in the semifinals, your next game in your side of the bracket. But you have to feel good about your defense. I thought up front, they looked about the way that we thought that they would. You saw Bill Norton in the backfield. He was causing problems. Ethan Burke racked up a sack. Baron Sorrell got a sack. I mean, it was inside, outside. Didn't even really have to rely on the athleticism and speed off the edge. Colin Simmons deflected the pass for the interception late, but he wasn't a massive impact, I didn't feel like, on this game. Alfred Collins stuffed some things up inside. That was more the issue, I felt like, Greg, was the bigger physical bodies that Texas had up front, not necessarily the Trey Moores off the edge.
Yeah, I mean, that was a big part of the problem, were the big physical bodies. I thought Norton, the goal line stand was like a thing of beauty, right? I mean, just Broughton, Norton, and Alfred Collins, all three of them made plays on like 3 straight plays.
Yeah.
And then they hit him off the edge, obviously, too. So, like, man, that kind of showed you the gap that existed, I think, between Clemson and Texas. Now, if I would have gotten the Texas performance up front defensively all 4 quarters, would have felt a little bit better. I thought their defensive line had about a C+ game as far as affecting the opposing quarterback, but as far as limiting the run attempts, great. A+, right? So stopping the run, fantastic. But now they got to figure out a way to consistently affect the passer. And I don't think they did a real adequate job of that. Now, part of that, give credit to Clemson where they were able to attack. You could also sense, too, Clemson's a team that's been there, man. Like, that's a program that has a championship pedigree and a championship culture. Like, they're not going to wet the bed when they're in a game like that. Whereas the 2 teams that we saw leading into the 3rd game, Indiana and SMU, you could tell it was their first time there. Just with how they played and just right down their leg. You know what I mean? Just right down the leg. Clemson, not that way. So that's a good team that's not going to back down, and they're going to rise to the occasion. But I just felt like the Texas performance was solid. I would not say it was great. I would not say it's one that I come away from it feeling super confident, but I do think there's quite a bit that they can probably clean up between now and their next game. No,
I feel like you're exactly right. The one thing that we have, I mean, the secondary, maybe the 4th down attempts, what do you attribute that to? Like, when I look back on it and say, you know, maybe people having something to say about your red zone or having something to say about finishing drives, what did you just feel like that they thought they were in that much control of this game? And that's why Sark and company wanted to give that effort?
You know, what's funny? I don't know. I don't know what the genesis of that was, because I just felt like it was a bit of an overstep from a standpoint of just overly aggressive. Like, this is kind of one of those, and I said it, I think I said it on the air on the game on Friday night. I'm like, I think Texas will win this game going away as long as they don't screw it up. And that was one way that you could kind of screw it up. You know what I'm saying?
Got pretty close at one point.
It's unnecessary. Like, I understand what the analytics says. I understand what all these other things say. That's great. But come on. Like, let's be a little bit smarter with how you go about your business, because it doesn't make sense to try a 4th down here. Like, let's just steady, punt it, make them go the length of the field. And I just think there's a couple of times where overly aggressive play is going to get you. We saw the same thing in the Penn State game, to be honest with you. They went for it on 4th and 1 inside their own 20-yard line, up 2 scores.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes no sense. Like, okay, analytics say go on 4th and 1. Awesome. Our defense is totally rocking today. But you're giving them life if you come up short there. So I think a little bit more conservative plan is necessary in the postseason like that, but I'm not getting paid $9 million to make decisions like that either.
No, it's Steve Sarkisian says one thing that he likes is the versatility his team brings to the table after the win.
I think that's kind of the beauty of this team, and we haven't been faced with this a ton, but the versatility we have as a team, we can win games a lot of different ways, and we can win low-scoring, tight, defensive-type games, but we can also score points when we have to and extend leads when we have to do that. And I thought tonight when they cut it to a one-score game, the response the offense had to Blue's long touchdown run to open it back up to a two-score game. That's what this team gives us the ability to do. We're just not one-dimensional. We're very versatile, and I think there's more there for us to even improve upon.
The versatility, just critical and key in games like this. Like Gunnar Helm had a great game. You used him as a little bit of an easy target off some play action stuff. The backs out of the backfield, the different motions, the different ways that you can run the same plays and look totally different. I think that's some of the versatility Stark speaks to, and he's got the personnel to be able to offer that. Also offering versatility is your CBD store, largest brick and mortar CBD retailer in the world. If you have arthritis, if your pet does, they have products that can help you there. Anxiety for you or your pet, they can help you there. They've helped a couple of pets out at my home with arthritis. They can help yours as well. What about skincare, gut health, you or your pet? They have products that can improve those and your daily routine. Products for sleep, products wake up, feel more focused throughout the course of the day. Right there at your CBD store, first company to have USDA certified organic oil supplements. One of those products they have, the Trim by SunMed for weight loss, appetite suppressant, in stock now at the largest brick and mortar CBD retailer on planet Earth. One of their 3 locations, go check them out today. Highway 280 by Bailey Brothers, 150 by the Cage in Cleveland, Trustful just off 459, your CBD store where good health hits home. Steve Sarkisian also, when asked about the future of the college football playoff.
I think we're going to learn a lot about this college football playoff from seeding and home games and bowl games and recruiting calendars and school calendars. There's a lot. This is first time out. But I can speak to this, and I can speak to the games that I watched on TV. It's surely created a great environment here. But as a fan of college football, I feel like the popularity of college football right now is at an all-time high. People are intrigued by it. People are loving watching the competitiveness of the games, the parity that's going on right now in the game.
So that is Steve Sarkisian, Texas head coach, on where things may be going next in this college football playoff. Dabo Swinney in a loss said he's proud of his team for battling back the way they did.
Proud of our team, though. We just got ourselves in a really big hole in the first half, giving up 28 points there. But maybe we battled back. Those kids could have quit. It's a tough situation. Things kind of uphill on you. But man, I'm proud of their fight. I'm proud of the heart that you saw of our group. We put ourselves in position to win the game.
So in position to win that game, but obviously couldn't finish it off late. Also says his quarterback always gives him a chance, no matter what the game looks like.
I mean, he's just a competitor. That kid he's one of the guys that spoke up in there and just talked about what he said. He said this is the most fun he's ever had playing football, this team this year. The most fun he's ever had. Pretty strong statement. But I think that speaks to closeness of this group. But he's an unbelievable player, number one. Great young man. And he's just grown into this amazing leader. Really close group. You're never out of it with him. He'll always give you a chance.
Never out of it with Cade Klubnik. And I'll say he proved a lot to me, Greg, this year and in this game. Able to overcome some of the turnover issues. Did a lot more with his legs, I think, than people thought he was going to going into the year. Made some big throws late in this game when he was in a bad spot. My perception of Cade Klubnik, very different than it was entering this college football season.
I think Cade Klubnik is probably, without being too reactionary, I'm not sure there's been a more improved player this year from last year. Like off the top of your head right now, you think about all the kids that have now gone from year 1 to year 2 and the amount of growth that we've seen at a ton of different positions. You might have one along the O-line. I don't know. But from where he was at this time last year, let's go back even a little bit further, because he was pretty good in December and he was pretty good in November. But go back to like week 5 when they wanted him benched at Clemson to where he's at now, where he's legit playing, borderline All-American type player. I mean, continued growth. He can get there next year, I think, with the supporting cast he has. Is there another guy in college football that is more improved?
Not that I can think of, because I think, too, obviously, there were a lot of folks that had kind of thrown in the towel on him. I mean, you could go with like a John Mateer, but I don't know if that's more improved or just actually got a real opportunity to prove what he was. But of guys who were the regular guys, just at quarterback, I can't think of one that just looked that much better than what he had been the previous year. And this was a guy that, I mean, I think the narrative coming into the season was, well, he's not going to win the big one. Like, You're not getting a national championship. Remember, Clemson wins titles when they have big-time quarterback play. He's not that guy. That was kind of what everybody thought about him. So at that position, no, I don't think, and I'd have to think a little bit harder to look around, but I'm not so sure that at any position there's a player that made a better improvement and changed their own perception than Cade Klubnik did this year.
And think about how hard that is to do. I mean, usually when people jump to a conclusion about you, changing the narrative is remarkably difficult. And I think he done a great job all season long. And people will say, well, it's against lesser competition. Sure, like he torched some bad teams. There's no doubt. But he gets the opportunity this past weekend to go against what I think is as complete a roster as there is in the sport in Texas. And he gave his team a chance. He gave his team a chance. And that's what more could you really ask for from your quarterback than to have a chance in the fourth quarter to go and make this thing interesting. I thought he played really well, very clean performance for the most part. And really it's been kind of building towards that all season long. And like I said, I really don't think there's a more improved player in the sport because he was thrown under the bus big time last year. This is not like Nico Iamaleava, who everyone thinks he can do no wrong when he really hasn't been that great all year. But everyone just, he's great. He's great. He gets he misses throws all over the place, and his QBR is the same as Joe Milton's was the year before, but he's great. Like, we didn't give Cade Klubnik the same benefit of the doubt that we've given other young quarterbacks. I don't know why that is, but other young quarterbacks kind of get a free pass. And guess what? I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
But Cade Klubnik didn't get that. And he has kind of earned the respect that he's gotten all throughout the season by putting together and stringing together good performance after good performance after good performance. Outside of week 1, he was pretty dang lights out all season long. And week 1 was almost entirely due to the fact that his offense wouldn't push it downfield at all. And they finally did as the season went along. So super impressed by his bounce back. I think Clemson's going to be a problem next year. Whether you want to acknowledge it or not, you can write them off and all these things. I'm good with that. But Clemson's going to be good next year, ladies and gentlemen. They're going to be in the mix.
I'll give you a couple here that might be close. Princely Umanmielen. Maybe Joshua Simon, tight end, South Carolina. And some of this still might just be what they were given opportunities to do. And then Santarin Perkins as well could be one of those guys. Like, I knew he felt like he was going to have a big year, but like he took a massive step this year. And Braden Swinson from LSU might be in that mix. He wasn't like a regular guy as much as he was this year, but felt like he took some huge steps this year as well. Just a couple of those off the top of the head. I don't think I'd put him ahead of him as far as just being better than they were.
But good ones, good names
season.
For sure.
I was just trying to think of any that are like even close.
No, I think those are some good ones. Like, I think you gave us some really good ones there to think about for sure.
All right, so when we come back, we'll hear from some of the other coaches that we didn't hear from earlier, their thoughts on the college football playoff, their wins, their losses, and then begin to hear from you on what needs to change, if anything, based on what happened this weekend. We'll discuss all that next right here on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning.
Welcome back, McElroy and Cubelic in the morning, 9:26 a.m. here in Birmingham, Alabama. Bill Smith Buick GMC is right up there in Coleman. It's a short drive for you, and you can go take advantage of the savings today. End of year savings that you want to make sure you take advantage of. You can go get a GMC Yukon Denali, $10,000 off the sticker. You can go and get a GMC Sierra 1500 SLE, $13,500 off the sticker. You get that vehicle for $46,775. It's deals like that you just won't find anywhere else. There's a reason why they sell more GMCs than anyone in the entire Southeast on a year-to-year basis, because they're the largest, they have the biggest inventory, and they have the best deals. So go and see the national champion. Go and see the GMC Dealer of the Year, the 7-time Dealer of the Year. By taking the short drive up to Coleman, you can also shop online, have it delivered right to your driveway at BillSmithBuickGMC.com.
All right, going back to a couple of the games that we've hit earlier in the show, Notre Dame 27-17 over Indiana. Greg was on the call for that one. Marcus Freeman said that he's proud of his team, but still has to stay a certain way moving forward.
Proud of the way they played. I told Coach Signetti after the game, I think that's a heck of a football team we faced, that obviously showed wouldn't quit till the end. Some good teaching opportunities for us. We're going to use that fourth quarter defensively, special teams wise. We got to learn from some of those situations that happened in that game, because we have to be better because of it. And I'm actually kind of glad it did happen, because it's going to be a chance for us to humble ourselves and get back to work and work on ways to improve as we get ready for this next opportunity.
All right, so that's Marcus Freeman on his team staying humble moving forward. And then also just that Jeremiah Love 98-yard touchdown run, how it changed the game.
Huge. Backed up situation. We just threw an interception the drive before, right? And it was 0-0 at that time. I think it was 0-0. Just threw an interception. We get an interception on defense, and that first play to go 98 yards was huge. Just for everybody. Yes, our offense, but the overall confidence of our team to go up 7-0 with that type of touchdown. We know he's not 100%. We're just going to keep getting him healthy, but he showed on that play at whatever percent he is. Once he breaks through that third level, it's hard to catch Jeremiah Love.
Greg, what did the atmosphere feel like? How did it feel different after that 98-yard touchdown run?
I mean, that was about as loud as it got. That was certainly probably one of the louder moments I've kind of been around, people going absolutely bonkers. I think the build up to the game right before the opening kick and that were the two most significant charged environments that you're going to see. So that was pretty legit, no doubt about it.
Yeah, it's it was a cool environment, great atmosphere, and one that we talked about with the plan that Indiana put in place felt just a little odd as how they managed a lot of it. Coach Signetti on just this season, how he's going to remember it.
Well, all good things coming to an end, and when you're my age, you've seen it all, and got a lot of guys hurting in there. But part of life is learning how to deal with disappointment the proper way, and come back a stronger person because of the experience. You never get everything you want in life. It's how life is.
All right, Signetti also, this is one, Greg, you guys didn't really hold back on this one. Why Indiana punted down 17 points in the fourth quarter?
I mean, I didn't want to punt, but we were doing nothing on offense, and our defense was fighting. That was the only positive really that I could draw, is our defense was still fighting, because offense was doing nothing. And I didn't want to go 4th and 10. It's like you're just wishing and hoping. You have nothing to base it on that you can convert 4th and 10 at that point, right? And there's still time if you punt to win the game. So that was the reason why. I didn't want to do it, but I felt like it was the best move.
Down 17 in the fourth, Greg, still time to win the game?
I don't think it is, but maybe he sees it a little differently. And I honestly don't think the defense at that point was in a position to stop them in a 3-and-out scenario. Like, if you really watched, and their punter, by the way, hadn't done jack all game long. I think that punt he had 2 good punts, and then the rest were like shanks. I think it was a net 28-yard punt. So, I mean, that's I guess if you want to play field position, but I got the sense in the 2 or 3 drives prior to that Notre Dame was starting to impose their will. And by the time they kicked it away, it was 30-20 in time of possession in favor of Notre Dame. So if they could start to extend drives at that point, man, it was going to look ugly. And sure enough, they went right down the field. I mean, it was not that surprising to me at all. That's what I sensed. And everyone feels differently. Like I got no problem being a little more conservative in game when it's still competitive. But I can tell you when I'm not going to be conservative. Down 3 scores in the fourth quarter. Like,
I guess that's
this is a win or go home. I don't need an eye test here. Like, I'm not trying to keep it close. You know, I could care less. Like, if I lose, I'm out.
My problem would be you admit your offense isn't doing anything, but then you say you still have time to come back and win.
Now they'll do something.
Based on what offense? I mean, it's you got to try something.
He knows he made him. I mean, there's no justifiable reason to punt it there.
Yeah.
Outside of you don't want to get blown out.
Which
seriously, like, I'm not trying to like, hey, you've now you're just playing to lose close.
Which is
to
not
me.
what
I don't care if you
want.
lose close or lose by 100. It's a playoff game. My season's over tomorrow if I don't succeed tonight.
Yeah, you got to find something.
I don't care what it is. I thought it was a big mistake, and I love Coach Sig. I think he's a great guy. I think he's a good coach. I think that was a mistake. We all make them. It happens.
Indiana was 4 for 12 on third downs. Rourke, 20 of 33, 215 yards. He had 2 touchdowns, did throw an interception. The running backs for Indiana went 22 carries for 73 yards. So that part of it wasn't as bad as the overall rushing numbers. Notre Dame goes 35 for 193 on the ground. Riley Leonard, 11 carries, 30 yards on the ground. I don't think it was just his running the football. It was just him sort of maneuvering the pocket and then knowing when to get rid of the ball. I mean, he had a couple, Greg, that were really close that ended up being completions that ended up being, I mean, not like 80-yard receptions, but just drive keeper-alivers, so to speak. Just, hey, there's a guy bearing down on you. Oh, get it out at the last second, 6-yard gain. Oh, you're moving around the pocket a little bit. Looks like you're going to run it, dump it off, 8-yard gain. And you're just like, man, he just kept things alive for that Notre Dame offense. And they didn't really have to challenge down the field because of where the game was.
No, at all. And I do think that that's going to be something that needs to continue. I mean, he was 1 for 1, you know, I mean, 1 for 1 on the downfield. Got to feel good about that.
Yep.
So I think Riley played a really smart game under the circumstances. Yeah, he had the interception. It was off a deflection. I can live with that. But I thought it was a really smart game, situationally aware, and he managed it perfectly. And I was a little surprised too. I don't know how you feel about it. Like, why did Indiana continue to play so much off coverage and just give up those freebies to the outside? Like, there was a handful of those just giving up. It's like, I mean, what are he's clearly shown the willingness to take the underneath stuff.
Yeah.
Like, come up and take away the back on the check down. Like, why are you giving that to him? Because you're giving it to Jadarian Price 6 yards downfield, makes a guy miss. It's a gain of 11. It's like, they gave it to him time and time again. I thought Riley just played a really smart and cerebral game.
It's kind of one of the bigger differences in the game, too. Indiana's DBs, not really in position to make plays. Notre Dame's DBs, closer to the line of scrimmage, made a ton of plays. Not the only difference, but one of the things that sort of took that game different directions for both teams. It was interesting to see just how Notre Dame's defense played it and how it led them into making a lot of impactful plays with guys that weren't necessarily accounted for Indiana at the line of scrimmage when the ball was snapped. So if you're trying to account for a new vehicle, Royal Automotive wants to help you out. They want you to experience how car buying should be. 4 Royal-owned dealerships, 1 location, selection savings unmatched. It's the only place to find over 20 unique truck and SUV options in one spot. Right now, get up to $15,000 off select 2024 GMC Sierra models. Sign and drive, 0 down, 0 security deposit, 0 first month's payment, 0 due signing on select Volkswagen Atlas, Tiguan, Taos models. Sign and drive any new Volvo XC40, XC60, or XC90 model with 0 down, 0 due signing, 0 for your first month's payment. Go see my friends at Royal Automotive. Certain restrictions apply. These offers valid through January the 2nd. Royal Buick GMC, Royal Volkswagen, Royal Automart, Volvo Cars of Vestavia Hills, all right there at the corner of I-65 and Highway 31 of Vestavia. Online, royalautomotive.net. Make Royal your first and last stop when car shopping. Remember, for every ride, there's Royal. All right, so when we come back, we've hit most of these playoff games. let's give you some portal updates. Alabama gets a couple commitments. Auburn gets a couple commitments. We will discuss those as well as a few others around college football that we think are going to be impactful next on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. $9:40 Monday, December 23rd, Jocks 94.5. Last live show until the end of the week here for us at Jocks 94.5. We'll be off for Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, the next 2 days. Hope you and your family all have a very safe and Merry Christmas. We were going to get to the NCAA transfer portal and just a couple of the things that have happened over the weekend. Greg, Alabama gets commitment from Miami wide receiver Isaiah Horton, position that they've lost a couple guys on, so needed to attack at least one or two in the portal and got one I think that's going to have a chance to be very productive.
Yeah, he's a really good player, and I like very much this size. I mean, what had we been talking about? And we had said it already, gosh, not too long ago, actually. I mean, so the Bama's got to get longer. I mean, they got to get longer at wide receiver. A bunch of guys that are 5'11", 6 foot aren't. I mean, you got to have some guys that are 6'4", and that's what this staff has liked. They went out, they target them, they go and get them. They're in good shape there. So I think that's going to be something worth watching. Is do they continue to go after guys with length and with good size speed combination?
Went for 168 on 13 catches in 2023, 616 for 56 catches, 5 touchdowns this past year. 6'4", 205, originally from Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Also, they get A&M offensive lineman Cam Dewberry. He'll be an interior offensive lineman. He's a guard. He's played, and at times has played good football. He offers some physicality. He's not a guy that I've ever had an issue with there, GMAC, and he gets some good numbers on the interior of that offensive line, which you're going to probably lose your best football player in Tyler Booker. So need to have a couple that can come in and at least compete for those spots. Yeah, and I think. Do you think Dewberry's a guard or a tackle? No, he's a guard. I think he's a tackle. Guard. Yeah, he's played a lot of different positions, but I think he's a guard. Okay, because that's I think the big question is yes, they need help at guard. That's understandable. Tackle's probably in a pretty good spot heading into next year, and we'll see what happens with center. I would imagine Parker will be back. Yeah, I think he's already said he's coming back. Brailsford. Oh, good. All right. That's excellent. Well, either way, we'll believe it when he sees it. I'm not going to jump to any conclusions about anticipating people being back at this point anymore. But I think it's good to know that there's a likelihood that he'll be back. So you're going to have really a guy at center and probably both tackles accounted for. I think it's safe to assume that both tackles will improve from last year to this year. One would hope. Now it's about finding some depth along that offensive line and finding some competitiveness along that offensive line. You're not going to be able to replace Booker. That's understandable. But what can you do to, I don't know, like what can you do to make Dewberry a capable player? Because he certainly looks the part, but I felt like I was kind of underwhelmed when I watched him from time to time. Yeah, I think the main thing for me is consistency and just find him a home. Give him a spot to play in and that he can just be comfortable with and kind of, let him go and sort of just find a way to be consistently the guy at a certain position. If you can do that, I think he's got a chance to be able to go out there and find some consistent success. Like I said, he's got enough physicality. He's a guy that I like the way that he plays when he's been in. It's just he's kind of bounced around and he's been a little bit inconsistent, technically and fundamentally. So, I mean, I think he's got ability. I think he's a guy that can definitely help you. It's just you got to find a way to make him a mainstay at a certain spot, and then you sort of run with it there. All right, a couple others in the portal that I wanted to get your thoughts on. Missouri's got a commitment from Penn State quarterback Bo Pribula, a guy that we talked a lot about, which is his situation where he is having to leave the team in the middle of a playoff run. But what is Eli Drinkowitz getting with this young man, and how do you think it fits Kirby Moore's offense? Well, he's really athletic. I think he throws it better than people realize. And I'll just be curious now, are they going to turn into a team that's going to utilize quarterback run? Or do they want to develop him as more of a drop back passer a la Brady Cook? Now, Brady Cook could still run, but that wasn't his best attribute. Right now, based on what I've seen, Pribula, his best attribute is his legs and athleticism. So what do you think? Do you think this, I think that there could be some Will Levis vibes here, perhaps. I don't think he has a big enough arm to be Will Levis, right? But Will Levis was used. Is he a better passer, though? Well, hear me out for a second. Will Levis was used the same way Bo Pribula was used when he was at Penn State, and it wasn't until he got to Kentucky that we found out, oh my goodness, this guy can throw it. We didn't know that. He was a runner. He was a situational package player at Penn State. So maybe there's a lot more in the tank as a passer for Bo Pribula, and we just haven't seen it yet. I hope that's the case. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like just from what I've seen, he's a little bit more of a polished passer. I think we fell in love with the tools that Will Levis brought. He could throw it 85 yards, and he's big and strong, could run people over, and I think those were the attributes instead of, all right, can he play quarterback? I have a little more confidence that Bo can do that. Florida gets a commitment from Charlotte quarterback Deshaun Purdy. 1,802 yards, 10 touchdowns, 6 picks. Bigger body kid. Very similar build to what you already have in Lagway. So it's a great spot for him to come in and sit behind DJ for a year or two and be able to kind of grow, and gives you a little bit of experience at your backup spot. So I think it's actually a good get for Florida. They also get UMass edge Kovi Asari, as they've had some success with some edge players from smaller schools. Look at George Gums and what he did for him this year. LSU continues to rack up, Greg. I mean, they are absolutely just slaughtering the transfer portal. They're going to get Florida State edge Patrick Payton, who I don't know if he had as much of a down year as just the team not being in a spot where he was going to make a lot of noise, but he can play. They also get Texas defensive tackle Sadir Mitchell. Just continues a pretty strong run for Brian Kelly. And I'll say it again. He told us when we were there for the final game of the year, we aren't going to put this money into a quarterback now. So we are going to be on the market ready to spend, and we're going to go get guys. And LSU is doing just that.
Well, one thing I'll say about Peyton, man, he looks the part. I mean, he's got length.
Yeah.
He wants to rush the passer. I just want to know, is he willing and wanting to do the dirty work? Because in this league, there's going to be some dirty work required. And we saw it already this year, like Princely Uman Mielen. I had the same questions about him when he went from Florida to Ole Miss. Like, he wants to get on the edge and rush up field and do all the fun stuff. But is he willing to take on the double team and hold the point against a stretch zone? I thought Princely did an adequate job of that this year. I don't think he's ever going to be a great run defender, but I think there were some strides taken. I think that's the question I'll now have for Patrick Payton. There's going to be some dirty work required in this league. Will he be willing to do that? Because if he does, this guy's all SEC contender every day of the week and twice on Saturday. If he doesn't, then he could be a liability.
A couple of others quickly here. Oregon's going to get USC Georgia defensive tackle Bear Alexander. Kentucky's going to get Nebraska running back Dante Dowdle and Alabama wide receiver Kendrick Law. Ole Miss continues a strong portal run. LSU safety Sage Ryan. I mean, other than experience there, I think people are probably exaggerating that one a bit. Wake Forest wide receiver Deuce Alexander as well is a really good get. Washington's going to get Arizona linebacker Jacob Manu. He can play. He's undersized, but he can play. He gets ball carriers to the ground. Mississippi State's going to get Eastern Michigan offensive lineman Kason Lee and Texas A&M edge defender Malik Sila. Also, they get Kentucky offensive lineman Colby Keenum. Gage Keys is leaving Auburn to go back to Kansas. So if you're keeping up with that timeline, it would read Minnesota, Kansas, Auburn, Kansas for Auburn defensive tackle Gage Keys. And Arkansas gets a big one, Greg. Not just Florida edge Justice Boone. Braylon Russell tweets over the weekend, the love I have for Coach Pitt and the University of Arkansas is beyond words. With everything happening in my life, I initially lost sight of what truly matters, but through conversations with Coach Pitt, I've regained my perspective. Thank you so much. I love you. At Coach Sam Pittman. So running back Braylon Russell is back in the NCAA transfer portal and then back to Arkansas from there again. So he has obviously had multiple changes of mind. Yeah, just back, he's zigzagging there. I did see this.
Let's hope he's as difficult to contain on the field as he is in the portal / out of the portal.
Well, he's big boy, so he might be. I did see this from Tyler Cass, and I wanted to get it a little bit of love after Russell announced that he had withdrawn his name. He tweets, big get for the Hogs. Instantly fills the hole left by Braylon Russell's departure earlier this month after Braylon Russell's return earlier this month after Braylon Russell's departure earlier this month. It's a massive get when you think about it. I mean, it's just that revolving door is one that's sometimes difficult to come back from, and they've been able to just sort of continue the circles and riding that merry-go-round of Braylon Russell back onto the roster. So a nice get there for Arkansas. All right, we will give you a bad box score of the day and wrap up today's show next right here on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Monday, December 23rd, 9:53 a.m. right here on Jocks 94.5. Tonight you get Saints, Packers. Saints are 5-9, Packers 10-4, Monday Night Football. This morning, here in 6 minutes, and you're going to get the Myrtle Beach Bowl. 6-6 Coastal Carolina against 8-6 UTSA. 1:30 today, you will get the famous Idaho Potato Bowl. 7-5 Northern Illinois, 6-6 Fresno State. 2 bowl games today. Monday Night Football tonight. Your bad box score of the day. We give that to you each and every day. We will go to junior college basketball to get you that one. And we start off on the ladies' side with the Harper College.
They're the Hawks.
They are. They struggled a little bit against the Stratton College.
Sycamores.
No,
they are they're the Lakers.
they are not.
Let's say the Stars.
They are the Bobcats. Stratton College is, and they just knocked off Harper 77-20. Your score by quarter, 19-4, 22-5, 24-7, and 12-4. Bryant shot 29-72, just 6 of 21 from 3. Out-rebounded Harper 39-21.
Okay.
It was not a great shooting days as Harper limited the turnovers to 28. Just limited those. Not too many.
Kept them in check. 7 a quarter.
Kept them right there in check and just made sure not to get too far out of whack with that one. So
were they turnovers or takeaways?
That's also fair.
That's fair.
And
gotta notice these things.
That's a question I don't have the answer to because I'm not exactly sure how that one went down. All right, we are off the next couple days. Have a Merry Christmas. You fellas have a Christmas tradition that you enjoy with your family? Anything specific comes to mind?
Yeah, lots of fun stuff. I'm excited to watch Santa flying around the United States on TV. Or all over the place.
What channel is that on?
Pretty awesome. Oh, they have like a Santa
NBC
deal
does that?
You can track them.
They have great programs.
It's awesome.
Oh. Just not
we love
compared to what happened Friday night.
Nope.
It's all downhill.
Nothing
here.
specific for you, John? Like one thing?
We in the family, we typically will always watch Scrooged Christmas Eve.
Christmas Eve night?
Yeah.
Damien?
Nah.
Nothing.
Nah.
Wow. Tradition heavy.
Okay, then. Millennials. Ugh.
Have a great Christmas. 3-Man Front's got all your college football news from the weekend, and that's going to be going down the rest of today. Keep it locked right here on Jocks 94.5.